Standing in the shadow of the Great Pyramid of Giza, you can't help but feel the weight of its impossible precision, a structure so perfectly aligned with true north that even modern tools struggle to match its accuracy. How that single word echoes through centuries, unanswered. Today, we're unraveling one of history's most tantalizing riddles, 42 geometric decisions in ancient architecture that defy logic, hinting at knowledge lost to time. These aren't just quirks of design, they're deliberate, mathematical whispers from civilizations who understood the universe in ways we're only beginning to grasp. Picture this: temples built to mirror constellations, pyramids encoding pi with near-perfect accuracy, and cities laid out like celestial maps, all without the aid of telescopes, calculators, or even the wheel. From the Parthenon's golden ratios to Stonehenge's silent astronomical code, these structures share a hidden language of geometry that spans continents and millennia. What connects them? Was it a shared source of wisdom, a divine blueprint, or something even more extraordinary? The deeper you look, the clearer it becomes these builders weren't just stacking stones. They were embedding secrets into the very fabric of their creations, leaving behind puzzles that still stump experts today. This journey isn't just about admiring ancient craftsmanship, it's about confronting a startling possibility. What if our ancestors possessed insights we've yet to rediscover? What if their primitive tools were merely the tip of an intellectual iceberg? As we explore these 42 mysteries, each more baffling than the last, you'll witness how a single geometric principle bridges the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Angkor Wat, and the megaliths of Easter Island. By the end, you'll see history not as a linear march of progress, but as a tapestry of brilliance with threads we've only just begun to pull, ready to question everything. Let's begin. The Great Pyramid of Giza doesn't just dominate the desert skyline, it defies the very limits of ancient engineering. Its four sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an error margin of just 1/15 of a single degree. To put that in perspective, modern architects using GPS and laser-guided tools would struggle to match such precision. Yet, this pyramid was built over 4,500 years ago, long before the invention of the magnetic compass. So how did the ancient Egyptians achieve this near-flawless orientation? One theory points to the stars. The builders might have tracked the movement of circumpolar stars like Theban, which served as the North Star at the time. By observing its path across the night sky, they could have marked true north with astonishing accuracy. Another method suggests using the shadows cast by the sun during the equinox, when day and night are of equal length. A simple rod planted in the ground would cast a straight east-west shadow at sunrise and sunset, allowing builders to draw perpendicular lines for north and south. But here's the catch: neither method fully explains the pyramid's microscopic margin of error. Even slight miscalculations in star positions or shadow angles would have resulted in noticeable deviations. Yet the pyramid stands as if its architects had access to celestial blueprints. Perhaps the most baffling aspect is the absence of any surviving records or tools that could explain this feat. Unlike later civilizations, the Egyptians left no detailed manuals or diagrams describing their alignment techniques. The only clues we have are a few fragmented inscriptions and the structures themselves, standing as silent witnesses to a lost understanding. Some researchers speculate that the builders used a now-forgotten technique, possibly involving water-filled trenches to create level sightlines or reflective surfaces to amplify celestial observations. Others propose that this knowledge was so sacred, it was deliberately kept secret, passed down only among elite priest architects. What's undeniable is that this alignment wasn't accidental. The pyramid's north-south axis doesn't just point roughly north, it targets true north, the rotational axis of the Earth itself. This implies an awareness of planetary motion far beyond simple stargazing. Did the Egyptians possess an advanced grasp of astronomy that history has overlooked, or was this precision achieved through trial and error, refined over generations? Either way, the Great Pyramid's alignment forces us to reconsider what ancient civilizations were truly capable of, and what other secrets might still lie buried beneath the sands of time. The Parthenon stands as a testament to the ancient Greeks' obsession with harmony, but not just any harmony. Its proportions whisper a mathematical secret found in seashells, galaxies, and even the human face, the golden ratio, approximately 1.618. This irrational number, represented by the Greek letter phi, appears in the spacing of the Parthenon's columns, the height-to-width ratio of its facade, and even the intricate dimensions of its triangular pediment. It's as if the builders had a divine ruler measuring out perfection in stone. But here's the mystery: while the Greeks revered geometry, there's no surviving record of them explicitly describing the golden ratio as we understand it today. So how did it end up so meticulously embedded in their most iconic temple? One clue lies in the work of the mathematician Euclid, who centuries later described a mean and extreme ratio, a geometric division that mirrors the golden ratio. Some argue the Parthenon's architects, like Phidias, might have known this principle intuitively, observing it in nature's spirals and branching patterns. Yet the precision of its application suggests more than just artistic instinct. The columns, for instance, taper slightly as they rise, their curvature and spacing adjusted to correct optical illusions, a technique that coincidentally aligns with phi's proportions. Was this deliberate or a happy accident of striving for visual balance? The debate deepens when you consider the Parthenon's purpose. Dedicated to Athena, it was meant to embody cosmic order. The golden ratio's presence could symbolize the union of earthly and divine harmony, a theme echoed in Plato's philosophy. But skeptics counter that measurements of ruined structures can be forced to fit modern mathematical ideals. After all, earthquakes and wars have shifted the Parthenon stones over millennia. Still, even accounting for erosion, the recurrence of phi-like proportions across multiple elements, from the floor plan to the sculptural friezes, hints at intentional design. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the Greeks' own tools. They used ropes and pegs to plot geometric shapes, and the golden ratio emerges naturally from simple constructions like the pentagram, a symbol linked to Pythagorean mysticism. Whether the Parthenon's architects consciously encoded phi or unconsciously echoed patterns they saw in the world, one thing is clear: their mastery of geometry bridged art and science in ways we're still unraveling. The temple doesn't just showcase beauty, it challenges us to ask how deeply the ancients understood the invisible rules shaping our universe. Teotihuacan stretches across the Mexican highlands like a sprawling celestial map. Its three main pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, mimicking the three bright stars of Orion's belt with uncanny precision. The angles between these structures match the constellations' celestial alignment so closely that the margin of error is negligible. But here's what makes this more than just an architectural coincidence. Orion's belt wasn't just a random cluster of stars to ancient Mesoamericans. It was a sacred marker tied to their creation myths and agricultural cycles. The question isn't just why they mirrored the stars, it's how they achieved such exactitude without telescopes or written records. What's even more astonishing is that this pattern isn't unique to Teotihuacan. over 4,000 miles away, the Giza pyramids in Egypt also reflect Orion's belt, with the three main pyramids aligning to the same stellar configuration. The Hopi people of North America, the Dogon of Mali, and even the ancient Chinese all integrated Orion into their sacred architecture and folklore. Could this be evidence of a lost global civilization, or did disparate cultures independently arrive at the same cosmic blueprint? Skeptics argue that Orion's prominence in the night sky makes it a likely candidate for reverence, but the geometric precision shared across these sites suggests something deeper. At Teotihuacan, the alignment goes beyond mere symbolism. The city's entire grid, including the Avenue of the Dead, seems designed to mirror celestial patterns. During certain times of the year, the pyramids cast shadows that interact with the avenue in ways that mark solstices and equinoxes, turning the city into a giant astronomical calendar. Yet, unlike the Egyptians, the builders of Teotihuacan left no star charts or mathematical treatises behind. Their knowledge appears to have been entirely oral or ritualistic, passed down through generations without written documentation. Some researchers propose that the alignment served a dual purpose, practical and spiritual. The stars of Orion rise just before the rainy season in Mesoamerica, signaling the time to plant crops. By embedding this celestial cue into their city's layout, the Teotihuacanos may have fused agriculture with cosmology, ensuring their survival while honoring the gods. Others speculate that the pyramids acted as terrestrial portals, aligning earthly power with celestial energy. Whatever the reason, one thing is undeniable: the builders of Teotihuacan didn't just look to the stars for inspiration. They wove the heavens into the very fabric of their city, leaving behind a puzzle that challenges our understanding of ancient science and spirituality. Stonehenge rises from the Salisbury Plain like a silent sentinel of the ancient world, its massive sarsen stones arranged with a precision that still baffles modern astronomers. This prehistoric monument doesn't just mark the summer solstice sunrise, it captures the moon's most extreme positions in its 18.6-year cycle, known as lunar standstills. Imagine standing in the center of the circle during a major standstill, watching the moon rise directly over the heel stone, its glow framing the monument with eerie accuracy. How did Neolithic builders, lacking written language or metal tools, achieve such celestial foresight? The answer might lie in patient, generational observation. Unlike the Egyptians or Mayans, Stonehenge's creators left no star charts or codices. Instead, they likely relied on oral tradition and wooden markers to track the sky's slow dance. Recent excavations reveal pits near the site that may have held timber posts, a prehistoric prototype used to plot solar and lunar alignments before the stones were erected. Over decades, perhaps centuries, these early astronomers could have refined their measurements, passing down knowledge through rituals or storytelling. But Stonehenge's genius goes beyond simple alignment. The monument's concentric rings and horseshoe shapes create sightlines that filter celestial events with surgical precision. The so-called station stones form a rectangle whose corners align with both solstice sunrises and the moon's southernmost rising point. This dual function suggests a sophisticated understanding of the interplay between solar and lunar cycles, an insight modern science only formalized with Newtonian physics. What's even more startling is the evidence of foresight in its construction. The blue stones, hauled over 150 miles from Wales, were placed to frame the winter solstice sunset, a time of spiritual significance for agricultural societies. This implies the builders didn't just react to celestial patterns, they anticipated them, embedding long-term astronomical knowledge into the landscape. Were they priest astronomers, or did entire communities participate in this sky-watching tradition? the absence of written records fuels speculation. Some theorists propose that Stonehenge was a Neolithic computer, its lintel-topped trilithons acting as a calendar that could predict eclipses. Others see it as a healing site where lunar alignments marked sacred times for rituals. What's undeniable is that the people who built Stonehenge weren't primitive, they were pioneers of celestial mechanics, turning earth and stone into a timeless observatory. Their silent stones challenge us to reconsider how deeply ancient cultures understood the cosmos, and what other astronomical secrets might still lie buried beneath the chalky soil of England. Rising above the jungles of Khajuraho and the riverbanks of Varanasi, the towering shikaras of Hindu temples spiral skyward in a rhythm more mathematical than mystical. These intricate peaks don't just ascend, they unfold, their concentric layers expanding in a sequence that mirrors the Fibonacci series, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and onward, each number the sum of the two before it. This same pattern governs the unfurling of fern fronds, the swirl of nautilus shells, and even the arms of distant galaxies. Yet here it is, carved in stone 1,000 years before Fibonacci penned his famous Liber Abaci in medieval Europe. How did ancient Indian architects encode a mathematical truth so universal, yet so seemingly invisible to the naked eye? The answer might lie in the sacred texts themselves. Hindu cosmology describes the universe as an organic, recursive creation, a concept echoed in the temple's very form. The shikara's tiers often replicate the Fibonacci spiral, with each layer's width or ornamentation matching the sequence's progression. Take the Kandarya Mahadeva temple, where the central tower's diminishing circles of sculpted deities align almost exactly with Fibonacci ratios. Unlike Western cathedrals, which often rely on rigid symmetry, these structures embrace growth patterns found in nature, as if the temples themselves were living entities reaching toward the divine. But was this intentional or an unconscious homage to natural forms? Ancient Indian mathematicians like Pingala described recursive sequences as early as 200 BC, using them to map poetic meters in Sanskrit verse. The Vastu Shastra, architectural manuals guiding temple construction, emphasize harmony with cosmic principles, yet none explicitly mention Fibonacci numbers. This absence fuels debate. Did builders observe spiral patterns in lotus flowers or hurricane clouds and replicate them intuitively? Or was the sequence a guarded secret, passed orally among master craftsmen as a sacred key to aesthetic perfection? The implications stretch beyond mere aesthetics. Fibonacci ratios create acoustical resonance, amplifying chants and bells within temple chambers. They also distribute structural weight along optimal stress lines, allowing these slender towers to withstand monsoons and earthquakes for centuries. Modern engineers have even borrowed these principles for earthquake-resistant skyscrapers, proving the ancients' grasp of bio-inspired design long before the term existed. Perhaps most strikingly, these temples challenge the timeline of mathematical discovery. While Fibonacci introduced the sequence to Europe in the 13th century, Indian temples had already been breathing it into stone for nearly a millennium. Were these builders merely artists mimicking nature's beauty, or did they possess a deeper understanding of the code underpinning reality itself? The shikaras stand silent, their spirals a riddle wrapped in stone, a testament to a civilization that might have glimpsed the universe's hidden numerical soul. High in the Andes, Machu Picchu clings to a mountain ridge like a fortress defying gravity and geology. Its walls, built without mortar, feature stones so precisely cut that not even a razor blade can slip between them. But what's truly astonishing isn't just their snug fit. It's how these irregular blocks dance during earthquakes. While modern buildings crumble, Machu Picchu's masonry sways and settles back into place untouched. This isn't luck, it's engineering genius. The Incas mastered a technique modern architects call kinematic coupling, where stone edges are subtly beveled or rounded, allowing them to shift and slide under seismic stress without collapsing. Consider the science behind this. Peru sits atop the collision of two tectonic plates, making it one of the most earthquake-prone regions on Earth. Yet, after 500 years of tremors, Machu Picchu's walls stand intact. Compare this to colonial-era structures nearby, which required constant rebuilding. The secret lies in the stones themselves. Instead of uniform bricks, the Incas used polygonal blocks with slightly convex surfaces. When the ground shakes, these stones roll and redistribute energy, acting like a 3D jigsaw puzzle that flexes rather than fractures. Even more remarkable, the walls taper inward as they rise, lowering their center of gravity and adding stability. How did the Incas develop this without seismographs or stress simulations? One theory points to trial and error. Centuries of observing how different masonry styles responded to quakes. Another suggests they borrowed knowledge from even older cultures like the Tiwanaku, whose ruins near Lake Titicaca show similar seismic adaptations. But Machu Picchu's precision hints at something deeper. The stone's interlocking shapes often mirror natural rock formations, as if the builders studied how mountains themselves withstand erosion and tremors. Was this biomimicry, or did they possess an intuitive grasp of physics that eluded later civilizations? The mystery deepens when you examine the tools they left behind. The Incas had no iron or steel, yet their bronze chisels and stone hammers somehow shaped granite with micrometer-level accuracy. Some researchers propose they used sand abrasion or thermal shock heating rocks, and then dousing them with water to fracture along precise lines. But these methods can't fully explain the complex curves and angles in Machu Picchu's most sophisticated walls, like the Temple of the Sun. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue comes from the site's location itself. Machu Picchu sits on a bedrock of granite which naturally absorbs seismic energy. The Incas might have intentionally chosen this spot, aligning their city with geological fault lines to harness the Earth's resilience. Today, engineers are reverse engineering these techniques for modern earthquake-proof designs, proving that the Incas didn't just build for their time, they built for eternity. Their silent stones whisper a challenge to our assumptions about ancient innovation, leaving us to wonder what other seismic secrets might still lie buried in the Andes. Long before Pythagoras was born, Babylonian architects were already applying the principles of his famous theorem, creating bricks with flawless right angles using mathematical precision that shouldn't have existed for another millennium. Clay tablets from ancient Mesopotamia, etched with cuneiform script around 1900 BCE, reveal detailed diagrams of rectangles divided into triangles, complete with calculations for diagonal lengths. These aren't theoretical exercises, they're practical manuals for brickmakers, ensuring uniform construction in ziggurats and city walls. The implications are staggering. A civilization famed for astrology and law had secretly mastered geometry at a level historians once attributed solely to the Greeks. Take the Plimpton 322 tablet, for instance. Discovered in modern-day Iraq, this 4,000-year-old artifact lists Pythagorean triples, sets of whole numbers that satisfy the theorem, like 3, 4, 5, arranged in neat columns. But unlike Greek proofs focused on abstract elegance, the Babylonians used these numbers to solve everyday problems, a brick needing a diagonal of 5 units. They'd scale up a 3-4-5 triangle to fit, chiseling edges with uncanny accuracy. Their approach was so systematic that modern scholars initially assumed the tablet must be a forgery. Yet the evidence is undeniable. These builders didn't just stumble upon the theorem, they integrated it into their industrial standards. How did this knowledge emerge so early? One theory points to their advanced base 60 number system, which made complex divisions and multiplications easier than in Greek or Roman numerals. Another suggests that constant temple construction demanded precise angles, pushing mathematicians to codify rules for consistency. But the real mystery lies in the absence of transmission. The Greeks, who later formalized the theorem, left no record of borrowing Babylonian math. Could Pythagoras have encountered these ideas during his alleged travels in Egypt or Mesopotamia? Or did both cultures independently unlock the same geometric truth? The Babylonians' legacy extends beyond bricks. Their astronomical records, also rooted in geometry, predict planetary movements using similar triangular calculations. This hints at a unified system where math served both earth and sky, a concept echoed millennia later in Newton's laws. Yet, unlike Newton, the Babylonians left no grand treatises boasting of their discoveries. Their genius was utilitarian, etched not in textbooks but in the very walls of their cities. Today, as archaeologists unearth more tablets, we're forced to rewrite the history of mathematics, one right-angled brick at a time. What other secrets might still lie buried in the clay of the Fertile Crescent? Beneath the golden dome that glows over Jerusalem's skyline lies a geometric secret most visitors miss. The Dome of the Rock isn't just a circle crowned by its famous roof. Its foundation is a perfect octagon, an 8-sided masterpiece aligned with sacred axes of the city itself. This isn't random symbolism. The octagon has deep roots in Islamic cosmology, representing renewal and the 8 gates of paradise described in the Quran. But the precision of its angles and proportions hints at something beyond spiritual metaphor, a level of mathematical sophistication that rivals modern engineering. How did 7th century architects, working without protractors or graph paper, achieve such flawless symmetry? The octagon's geometric purity is no accident. Each of its 8 walls measures exactly 20 meters in length, with corners angled at a crisp 45 degrees. Even more striking, the structure's orientation aligns with key landmarks in Jerusalem's sacred landscape: the Mount of Olives to the east, the Al-Aqsa Mosque to the south, and the ancient Temple Mount platform beneath it. This isn't just aesthetic harmony, it's a deliberate fusion of earthly and celestial order. Some scholars argue the octagon mirrors the 8 directions of the compass, symbolizing Islam's universal reach. Others note its resemblance to Byzantine martyria memorial shrines, suggesting a deliberate architectural dialogue with earlier traditions. Yet the dome's design goes deeper than symbolism. The octagon's proportions create a subtle interplay of light and shadow. During solstices, sunlight enters through specific windows, illuminating inscriptions and mosaics at precise times, turning the space into a seasonal clock. The central rock beneath the dome, sacred to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, sits at the exact geometric heart of the octagon, reinforcing its role as an axis mundi, a bridge between heaven and earth. Such precision implies that the builders possessed advanced knowledge of sacred geometry, possibly inherited from Greco-Roman or Persian mathematicians. The mystery intensifies when you consider the tools available at the time. Without standardized measuring devices, how did craftsmen ensure each wall matched perfectly? One theory points to the use of knotted ropes and plumb bobs, techniques passed down from ancient Egyptian builders. Another suggests they relied on geometric templates, perhaps wooden or metal frames, to replicate angles consistently. But neither method fully explains the dome's near-flawless execution. The margins of error are so slight that modern laser scans reveal deviations of less than 2 centimeters across the entire structure. What's most compelling is the octagon's enduring stability. Despite earthquakes, wars, and centuries of wear, the dome's walls haven't shifted. This resilience stems from its balanced load distribution, a feature intrinsic to octagonal designs, which disperse stress more evenly than squares or circles. Medieval Islamic architects might have understood this intuitively, observing how eight-sided towers withstood quakes better than rectangular ones, or perhaps they encoded deeper principles of harmony, blending form and function into a single spiritual statement. The dome's octagon remains a silent testament to a time when architecture was more than engineering. It was a language of the divine. Whether serving as a cosmic diagram, a solar calendar, or a monument to faith, its perfect angles challenge us to reconsider the boundaries between art, science, and the sacred. In a city layered with millennia of conflict, the dome's geometry whispers a unifying truth. Precision and beauty are, at their core, expressions of reverence. Angkor Wat sprawls across the Cambodian jungle like a stone echo of the night sky, its 5 iconic towers rising in a pattern that mirrors the twisting stars of the Draco constellation. But this isn't just artistic inspiration, it's a celestial blueprint. When researchers overlaid the temple's layout with the stars of Draco, they found an alignment so precise that the central towers match the constellation's brightest stars, while smaller shrines trace its fainter points. Even more astonishing, this mirroring isn't static. On the spring equinox, the sun rises directly behind Angkor Wat's central tower, casting a shadow that aligns with the temple's celestial map, as if activating an ancient astronomical code. What makes this alignment remarkable isn't just its accuracy, it's the timing. The Draco constellation's position shifts over millennia due to Earth's wobbling axis, a phenomenon called precession. Angkor Wat's construction in the 12th century coincided with a period when Draco's shape closely matched the temple's footprint. This suggests the Khmer architects didn't just snapshot the sky. They understood precession well enough to capture a celestial moment that wouldn't last. How the Khmers left no star charts or written records of such advanced astronomy, yet their temples whisper of knowledge that modern science only formalized centuries later. One clue lies in the temple's sacred function. Angkor Wat was dedicated to Vishnu, a Hindu god associated with cosmic order. Its bas-reliefs depict celestial beings and mythological scenes that some scholars interpret as coded astronomical knowledge. The temple's moat, often dismissed as decorative, may have served as a reflective surface for stargazing, allowing priests to track Draco's movements without telescopes. Other researchers point to the Naga serpent motifs winding through the complex symbols that eerily resemble Draco's sinuous star pattern in both form and spiritual significance. The practical implications deepen the mystery. Angkor Wat's alignment with Draco isn't just symbolic, it's functional. The temple's corridors and gates are positioned to mark solstices and equinoxes, turning the entire complex into a calendar that harmonizes earthly and celestial cycles. This level of integration suggests the architects saw no divide between science and spirituality. Geometry was theology, and astronomy was worship. Yet the question lingers, how did they achieve such precision? Unlike the Egyptians or Mayans, the Khmers had no known observational instruments. Some theorize they used bamboo sighting tubes or water-filled trenches to stabilize star sightings. Others propose that oral traditions preserved astronomical knowledge across generations, with master builders memorizing star patterns as part of their training. Whatever their methods, the result is undeniable: a temple that doesn't just point to the stars but becomes them, frozen in stone. Angkor Wat's silent dialogue with Draco challenges our assumptions about ancient innovation. It's one thing to build a monument aligned with the sun or moon events visible to anyone, but to encode a specific constellation's shifting form into architecture, implies a sophistication we're only beginning to decode. Was this celestial mirroring a divine mandate, a scientific achievement, or both? The towers stand silent, their stones holding secrets as vast as the sky they reflect. The Great Pyramid of Giza holds a mathematical secret hidden in plain sight. Its very shape encodes the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, the number we now call pi. If you take the pyramid's original perimeter and divide it by twice its height, the result is 3.1416, matching pi to an astonishing 99.9% accuracy. For comparison, even Archimedes, working over 2,000 years later, could only approximate pi to 3.1418. So how did the pyramid's builders achieve such precision centuries before pi was formally calculated? One theory suggests this wasn't deliberate but a byproduct of the Egyptians' preferred measurement system. They used cubits, with one royal cubit equaling roughly 52.5 centimeters. The pyramid's base length was originally 365 cubits, a number mirroring the days in a year, while its height was 146.6 meters, or 280 royal cubits. When you divide the perimeter by twice the height, the cubits cancel out, leaving a ratio that just happens to resemble pi. Skeptics argue this is pure coincidence, a mathematical accident stemming from unrelated design choices. But the evidence grows harder to dismiss when you examine the pyramid's internal geometry. The king's chamber, for instance, has dimensions that produce a right triangle with sides reflecting Pythagorean triples, another advanced concept not formally documented until millennia later. Even more compelling, the pyramid's descending and ascending passageways are angled in ways that correspond to significant astronomical alignments, suggesting the builders were working with a unified system of mathematics, astronomy, and symbolism. Could the Egyptians have known pi's true value? Some researchers point to the Rind mathematical papyrus, an ancient Egyptian text that includes problems involving circles. While it doesn't state pi explicitly, one problem calculates a circular field's area using a method that implies a pi approximation of 3.16 close, but not as precise as the pyramid's encoding. Others propose that the pyramid's architects used rolling wheels or ropes to measure circular distances, indirectly discovering pi's ratio through practical experimentation. Then there's the symbolic angle. In Egyptian cosmology, the pyramid represented the primordial mound from which creation emerged, a shape bridging earth and sky. Encoding pi, a fundamental constant of the universe, into its proportions might have been a way to embed cosmic harmony into the structure itself. Whether intentional or not, the pyramid's pi correlation challenges our assumptions about ancient mathematical knowledge. It stands as a silent testament to a civilization whose grasp of numbers might have been far deeper than surviving records suggest. The stones don't just mark a tomb, they whisper a riddle across millennia, daring us to solve it. Standing at the base of El Castillo in Chichen Itza, a single clap sends a sound ricocheting off the pyramid's limestone steps, but what echoes back isn't an ordinary reverberation. It's the piercing chirp of the Quetzal, a bird revered by the Maya as a divine messenger between earth and sky. This isn't just an acoustic accident, it's a meticulously engineered phenomenon, one that transforms human noise into sacred mimicry. How did a civilization without formal acoustical science design a pyramid that manipulates sound waves with such precision? The answer lies in the very stones beneath your feet. The secret starts with the pyramid staircase. Each of El Castillo's 4 stairways has exactly 91 steps, totaling 364 when combined with the shared platform at the top, a number mirroring the days in a solar year. But these steps aren't just a calendar, they're a sonic filter. The treads are unevenly spaced and slightly concave, scattering sound waves in ways that cancel out lower frequencies while amplifying higher ones. When a clap hits these surfaces, the sound fractures into tiny echoes that merge midair, creating the illusion of a bird call. Modern acoustic engineers have measured this effect, confirming the pyramid's chirp matches the Quetzal's natural frequency almost exactly. What's even more astonishing is how this acoustic trick aligns with the pyramid's spiritual purpose. The Quetzal was associated with Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god worshipped at Chichen Itza. During equinoxes, sunlight slithers down the pyramid steps like a serpent's shadow, a visual spectacle paired with an auditory one. Pilgrims clapping at the base would hear the Quetzal's cry, as if the god itself were answering their prayers. This wasn't just architecture, it was theater, blending physics and faith into a single transcendent experience. But the mystery deepens when you consider the tools the Maya had at their disposal. Without oscilloscopes or frequency analyzers, how did they tune a pyramid like a musical instrument? One theory points to their obsession with water. The cenotes surrounding Chichen Itza natural sinkholes, considered portals to the underworld, have unique acoustic properties. The Maya might have noticed how sounds echoed in these caverns and replicated the effect in stone. Another clue lies in their ball courts, where whispers at one end can be heard clearly 100 meters away. These spaces prove the Maya understood sound reflection, perhaps even conducting proto-experiments with different materials and angles. Yet El Castillo's chirp isn't its only acoustic marvel. The temple's inner chambers amplify whispers while muffling outside noise, a feature that would require modern architects to use computer simulations. At certain spots, two people standing far apart can converse in hushed tones as if standing side by side, while the wind and crowd noises fade into silence. Some researchers speculate these effects were used for secret ceremonies or oracles, where priests could deliver messages that seemed to come from the stones themselves. The pyramid's acoustics challenge our assumptions about ancient innovation. While we credit the Greeks with early breakthroughs in harmonics, the Maya were sculpting soundscapes with geometric precision centuries earlier. Was this knowledge empirical, passed down through generations of trial and error, or did they possess a deeper understanding of wave dynamics, lost to time? Either way, El Castillo stands as a testament to a civilization that didn't just build monuments. They composed symphonies in stone, leaving behind echoes that still sing across the ages. Etched into the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca lines stretch across nearly 500 square kilometers like a giant sketchbook, massive geometric shapes, spirals, and trapezoids so precise they could have been drawn with a protractor. A hummingbird with wings spanning 66 meters, a spider with legs perfectly proportioned down to the joint, a spiral uncoiling with mathematical exactitude. These aren't crude scratches in the earth. They're masterpieces of scale and symmetry, visible only from high above the desert floor. And that's the first mystery. How did a civilization that left no record of flight or hot air balloons design art meant to be seen from the sky? The precision is staggering. The lines themselves are shallow trenches, just 10 to 15 centimeters deep, but their edges are crisp, as if cut with a laser. Some run arrows straight for kilometers, deviating less than 4 meters over distances that would challenge modern surveyors. Even more baffling are the curves, the flawless spirals and parabolic arcs that would require advanced geometric knowledge to plot. Researchers have found wooden stakes near some lines, suggesting the Nazca used simple ropes and markers to outline their designs. But scaling these small sketches into colossal geoglyphs without aerial oversight seems almost impossible. A 1% error in measurement at ground level would distort a shape beyond recognition when viewed from above. yet the Nazca's margin of error is virtually undetectable. What were these lines for? Theories abound, but none fully explain their complexity. The most popular idea ties them to water rituals, the trapezoids aligning with underground aquifers, the animal shapes symbolizing deities who controlled rainfall in this parched landscape. Another suggests the lines formed a giant astronomical calendar, with key shapes pointing to solstice sunrises or constellations like Orion. But recent studies reveal a frustrating inconsistency. Only a fraction of the lines align with celestial or hydrological features. Then there's the walking theory. Archaeologists have noted that many lines converge at low hills, forming what might be ritual pathways for processions. Microscopic analysis of the soil shows repeated foot traffic along certain routes, hinting at ceremonial use. But this doesn't account for the giant biomorphs, the animal figures that seem designed for aerial viewing. Why would people walking at ground level need to see a 300-meter monkey with its tail curled into a perfect spiral? The most tantalizing clue comes from the Nazca's own technology. They crafted intricate textiles with repeating geometric patterns, demonstrating an advanced understanding of symmetry and scaling. Some researchers propose they used grids, scaling up small models by systematically duplicating patterns across the desert. Others point to their sophisticated irrigation systems, which required precise gradient skills that could translate to large-scale land art. Yet the line's sheer variety resists a single explanation. Some clearly mark ceremonial spaces, while others resemble abstract maps or even landing strips, fueling fringe theories about ancient astronauts. But the most compelling evidence comes from the Nazca's worldview. To them, the desert wasn't just a canvas, it was a liminal space where the earthly and spiritual realms met. The lines might have been offerings to gods who viewed them from the sky, or pathways for spirits to traverse. Their perfection wasn't just technical, it was devotional, a testament to a culture that saw geometry as sacred. Today, drones and satellites reveal new lines yearly, each discovery deepening the mystery. The desert guards its secrets well, leaving us to wonder, were the Nazca artists, astronomers, or priests? Perhaps they were all three, weaving science and spirit into shapes that still defy comprehension. Their lines don't just stretch across the earth, they stretch our imagination, challenging us to see the world through ancient eyes. Hidden within the Vatican museums, Bramante's double helix staircase spirals upward like a strand of unraveled DNA, a marvel of Renaissance engineering that defies the architectural norms of its time. Two separate staircases intertwine in perfect harmony, allowing visitors to ascend and descend simultaneously without crossing paths, their movements mirroring the celestial dance of twin stars. But what's truly baffling isn't just the staircase's elegant symmetry, it's the fact that this towering structure lacks a central support column, relying instead on the precise curvature of its spiraling ramps to distribute weight. How did 16th century architects achieve such a feat without the calculus or material science we rely on today? The genius lies in the staircase's geometry. Each ramp curves at an exact gradient, its outer wall thickening subtly to bear the load while the inner edge remains slender, creating a balance that prevents collapse. Modern engineers have analyzed the design using 3D modeling, revealing how the alternating stress points cancel each other out, much like the tension in a woven rope. This self-supporting system was revolutionary for its time, predating the formal study of structural physics by centuries. Some scholars argue Bramante might have drawn inspiration from ancient Roman ramps, like those in the Trajan's column, but none match the double helix's intricate interdependence. Then there's the symbolic layer. The staircase wasn't just a functional passage, it was a metaphor. Commissioned by Pope Julius II, its twin spirals represented the harmony of earthly and divine knowledge, echoing the Renaissance ideal of uniting art and science. Visitors climbing one ramp could glimpse those descending through strategically placed windows, a visual reminder of life's cyclical nature. The design even incorporates hidden acoustics. Whispers on one spiral can sometimes be heard on the opposite side, as if the structure itself fosters secret dialogues. But the mystery deepens when you consider the tools available in 1516. Without computers or even precise measuring tapes, how did Bramante's team calculate the exact angles needed to keep the staircases from collapsing under their own weight? One theory points to their use of scaled wooden models, testing proportions through trial and error. Another suggests they applied principles from shipbuilding, where curved hulls had long demonstrated how arches distribute pressure. Yet neither fully explains the staircase's flawless execution, a structure that has endured earthquakes, centuries of foot traffic, and even the occasional horse-drawn cart during papal ceremonies. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue comes from Bramante's own notes, which mention studying the spiral paths of celestial bodies. Could the staircase's design have been influenced by early telescopic observations of galaxies, then just beginning to enter European consciousness? Or was it simply the product of an intuitive grasp of geometry, honed through years of sketching arches and vaults? Whatever the inspiration, Bramante's staircase remains a testament to a time when architecture wasn't just about function. It was about pushing the boundaries of what humans believed possible. Today, as visitors trace its spirals, they're walking through a frozen moment of Renaissance audacity, where stone and imagination intertwine to defy gravity itself. The Bible recounts Solomon's temple in meticulous detail, its walls, chambers, and altars measured not in arbitrary lengths but in cubits, a unit that echoes far beyond the pages of Scripture. At first glance, this ancient measurement seems simple, roughly 52.5 centimeters, the length of a forearm from elbow to fingertip. But when archaeologists compared these biblical dimensions to the pyramids of Egypt, they uncovered something startling. The royal cubit used to build Solomon's temple wasn't just similar to the Egyptian standard. It was virtually identical, down to the millimeter. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a mathematical thread connecting two civilizations separated by centuries and geography. How did this precise unit of measurement span cultures with no known direct contact? The implications are profound. Standardized measurements are the backbone of advanced architecture, ensuring consistency in large-scale projects. The Egyptians refined their cubit using finely carved rods of black granite, some of which survive today. These rods weren't crude markers, they were calibrated with fractional subdivisions, allowing for astonishing precision. The fact that Solomon's builders employed the same unit suggests a shared system of knowledge, one possibly inherited from an even older source. Some scholars point to the Sumerians, whose sexagesimal base 60 system influenced both Egyptian and Hebrew mathematics. Others propose that the cubit's origins lie in nature, derived from the average dimensions of the human body, making it a universal constant across cultures. But the temple's design takes this further. Its inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, formed a perfect cube of 20 cubits per side, a shape laden with cosmological symbolism in both Hebrew and Egyptian traditions. The outer walls followed ratios that mirrored harmonic proportions found in music and astronomy, echoing the same principles seen in the Great Pyramid's chambers. This wasn't just functional construction, it was sacred geometry encoded into stone. The mystery deepens when we consider how this knowledge was transmitted. The Bible credits Phoenician craftsmen with aiding Solomon's construction, a detail often overlooked. The Phoenicians, master navigators and traders, could have acted as intermediaries, carrying architectural secrets between Egypt and the Levant. Yet no surviving records explain why these cultures would standardize a unit so precisely. Was the cubit's consistency a result of trade and cultural exchange, or did it stem from something more enigmatic, a lost scientific tradition or even divine instruction? Modern experiments reveal even more curiosities. When researchers applied the royal cubit to the temple's described dimensions, they found recurring mathematical constants, including approximations of pi and the golden ratio. These patterns are too consistent to dismiss as accidental, hinting at an intentional design philosophy that blended mathematics with theology. Whether the cubit was gifted by divine revelation or honed through generations of observation, one thing is clear. The builders of Solomon's temple didn't just use a ruler, they wielded a key to universal order, one that still resonates in the stones they left behind. Easter Island's Moai statues rise from the earth like giants frozen mid-stride, their massive stone heads, some weighing as much as 82 tons, balanced precariously on slender torsos. At first glance, they defy physics. How can these towering figures, some standing over 30 feet tall, remain upright on uneven volcanic terrain without toppling? The answer lies not in their imposing presence, but in a subtle genius hidden below the surface, their carefully sculpted bases. Unlike typical statues with flat foundations, the Moai curve inward at the bottom, creating a convex shape that acts like the weighted base of a child's rocking toy. This design shifts their center of gravity forward, allowing them to sway slightly during earthquakes or storms before settling back into place. The precision of this engineering becomes even more remarkable when you consider the tools available to the Rapa Nui people. Without metal implements or written records, they carved these colossal figures directly from compressed volcanic tuff, using nothing more than stone hand chisels called toki. Yet their understanding of weight distribution rivals modern principles of statics, the branch of physics dealing with balance and stability. Archaeologists have discovered partially completed moai still embedded in the quarry at Rono-Roroku, revealing how the artisans shaped the statues' backs first, leaving a keel-like protrusion at the base to stabilize them during transport. Only once the moai reached their final locations were these keels carefully chiseled away, fine-tuning the curvature to perfection. But the mystery doesn't end there. Recent 3D scans of toppled moai show something astonishing. Their bases often feature subtle, intentional flat spots. These aren't carving errors, they're stabilizers, tiny contact points that prevent excessive rocking while maintaining flexibility. It's a technique similar to the footprint design of modern skyscrapers in earthquake zones, where buildings are engineered to sway but not collapse. How did the Rapa Nui develop this knowledge without formal physics or mathematics? One theory points to their intimate relationship with the island's harsh environment. Living on a remote volcanic island prone to seismic activity, they may have observed how rounded boulders weathered quakes better than angular rocks, applying this natural wisdom to their sculptures. Another clue lies in the moai's spiritual significance. These weren't just monuments, they were vessels for ancestral spirits believed to watch over the living. The statue's stability mirrored the Rapa Nui's world-view, balance between land and sea, humans and nature. Some researchers suggest the curved bases symbolize canoes, reflecting the islanders' Polynesian heritage of ocean navigation. Just as a well-balanced canoe rides the waves without capsizing, the moai's design keeps them standing against time's turbulence. The most haunting question remains: how was this knowledge lost? When European explorers arrived in the 18th century, most moai had been toppled, their bases shattered. Oral traditions speak of clan wars and ecological collapse, but the statue's engineering secrets vanished with their creators. Today, as archaeologists use cranes and lasers to re-erect the fallen giants, we're left to marvel at a civilization that turned stone into a dance with gravity, a silent testament to intuition's power over textbooks. The Moai don't just stand on the earth, they whisper across centuries, challenging us to rethink what it means to balance the impossible. The Pentagon's five-sided silhouette dominates the Washington skyline, not just as a fortress of military might, but as an architectural riddle wrapped in sacred geometry. At first glance, its shape seems purely practical, a response to the awkward wedge of land it was originally planned to occupy. But dig deeper, and the building reveals layers of symbolism that trace back to ancient mysticism. The Pentagon isn't merely a five-sided polygon. Hidden within its blueprint is the pentagram, a shape revered since Babylonian times as a talisman against evil. Was this a deliberate echo of esoteric traditions, or just a coincidence born of efficient design? The evidence tilts toward intention. The pentagram's historical weight is undeniable. Pythagoras called it the hymn of the cosmos, embodying mathematical harmony. Medieval knights embedded it in shields for protection, and Renaissance alchemists used it to symbolize the five elements. When architect George Bergstrom drafted the Pentagon in 1941, he reportedly studied classical geometry, though official records downplay any mystical influences. Yet the building's proportions align with the golden pentagram, where intersecting lines divide segments at the golden ratio. Walk its corridors, and you'll find 5 concentric rings connected by 10 radial hallways, a design mirroring the pentagram's interlaced triangles. Even the central courtyard, once dubbed Ground Zero during the Cold War, forms a perfect pentagon, reinforcing the shape's recurrence. Skeptics argue the pentagon was simply the most efficient shape for housing 30,000 workers while minimizing walking distances. Bergstrom himself claimed the design prioritized function, with 5 sides allowing shorter paths between offices than a square or hexagon. But efficiency alone doesn't explain the eerie precision of its geometry. Measurements reveal that the pentagon's side lengths and angles correspond to sacred geometric principles found in temples from Luxor to Chartres. The ratio of its outer wall length to the inner courtyard circumference approximates phi 1.618, the golden ratio ubiquitous in nature and ancient architecture. Then there's the timing. Construction began during World War II, a period when governments openly explored esoteric symbolism. The U.S. military's earlier adoption of the 5-pointed star as its emblem suggests a familiarity with the pentagram's protective lore. Some historians note that President Roosevelt, who commissioned the building, had advisors steeped in Masonic traditions, a group long associated with sacred geometry. Coincidence or not, the Pentagon's completion in under 16 months, despite its complexity, feels almost alchemical. The building's resilience adds another layer to the mystery. On September 11, 2001, when Flight 77 struck the Pentagon, the impact zone happened to be the only section recently reinforced with blast-resistant materials. The damage, while tragic, was far less catastrophic than it might have been elsewhere in the structure. To some, this wasn't just luck, it was the pentagram's ancient promise of protection manifesting in steel and concrete. Whether the Pentagon's design was a clandestine nod to occult wisdom or a stroke of pragmatic genius, its geometry transcends mere utility. It stands as a modern monument to an age-old truth: shapes carry power. From Babylon to Washington, the 5-pointed star has been a silent guardian, its meaning shifting with the centuries but its essence unchanged. The Pentagon doesn't just house strategists, it embodies a primal human instinct to seek harmony, defense, and order in the language of lines and angles. In that sense, it's less a building and more a cipher, waiting for those who dare to decode its silent geometry. Rising from the jungles of central Java, Borobudur stretches toward the sky not as a single structure, but as a stone meditation, a colossal three-dimensional mandala meant to be walked, not just seen. This 9th century Buddhist monument takes the sacred geometric diagrams of Tibetan sand paintings and Vajrayana scrolls and transforms them into a physical journey of enlightenment. 9 stacked platforms form a perfect stepped pyramid, with the lower 6 terraces square and the upper 3 circular, culminating in a massive central stupa. But this isn't just architectural symbolism. It's a precise mathematical translation of cosmic order. Every measurement, from the width of the walkways to the height of each tier, follows ratios found in ancient Vedic texts describing the universe's structure. The genius of Borobudur lies in how it maps spiritual progression onto physical space. Pilgrims don't simply climb stairs, they trace a sacred spiral path covering over 3 miles, passing 2,672 relief panels and 504 Buddha statues along the way. Each terrace represents a stage of consciousness according to Mahayana Buddhism. The square base symbolizes the earthly realm Kamadhatu. The middle galleries depict the transitional world of forms Rupadhatu, and the circular terraces embody the formless realm Arupadhatu. The symmetry is so exact that if you were to fold the monument's blueprint along its central axis, every corridor and niche would align perfectly. This level of precision implies the builders didn't just approximate sacred geometry, they calculated it. But how did 9th century Javanese architects, working without graph paper or modern surveying tools, achieve such flawless execution? The answer may lie in an ancient unit of measurement called the tola, based on the proportions of the human face. Researchers have discovered that Borobudur's dimensions align with multiples of this unit, suggesting builders used their own bodies as living rulers. Even more remarkably, the temple's cardinal directions align with specific mountains visible on the horizon, turning the entire landscape into part of the mandala. Mount Merapi to the northeast, Mount Summing to the northwest, and the Progo River to the south weren't just background scenery. They were active participants in the temple's cosmic geometry. The mystery deepens when examining Borobudur's hidden layers. Beneath its visible structure lies a sealed base adorned with 160 relief panels depicting the law of karma. These were deliberately buried, possibly to stabilize the monument against Java's frequent earthquakes, or to symbolize the hidden nature of cosmic truths. Modern scans reveal that the builders even adjusted the foundation's depth in different sections to compensate for uneven terrain, proving their understanding of structural engineering matched their spiritual vision. Perhaps most astonishing is how Borobudur's design anticipates perceptual psychology. The narrowing path as pilgrims ascend creates a forced perspective, making the upper stupas appear farther away than they are, a visual metaphor for the illusion of distance on the path to enlightenment. The circular terraces contain perforated stupas housing Buddha statues, their diamond-shaped openings framing the figures only when viewed from specific angles. This forces visitors to slow down and engage mindfully, transforming architecture into an active teacher. Borobudur stands as a testament to a civilization that saw no divide between art, science, and the divine. Its stones don't just form a temple, they chart a cosmic roadmap, inviting us to walk the same path ancient pilgrims once did, one geometrically perfect step at a time. In a world where we compartmentalize knowledge, this silent mountain of stone reminds us that the greatest truths are often written not in words, but in the sacred language of shape and space. Step into the nave of Chartres Cathedral, and the rose window above the western portal stops you in your tracks, not just for its kaleidoscopic colors, but for the geometric secret pulsing within its stained glass. Interwoven among the floral patterns and biblical scenes is a perfect hexagram, its six-pointed star formed by the precise overlap of two equilateral triangles. This isn't a one-off flourish. Identical hexagrams appear in the rose windows of Notre Dame, Strasbourg, and Reims, their tracery echoing designs found in medieval alchemical manuscripts. At first glance, they might pass as decorative flourishes, but the consistency of their placement, often aligned with solstice light paths, hints at something far more deliberate. Why would Christian architects embed a symbol associated with Jewish mysticism and pagan cosmology into their most sacred spaces? The answer may lie in the medieval fusion of science and spirituality. Gothic cathedrals were more than houses of worship. They were encyclopedias in stone, encoding the era's cutting-edge knowledge. The hexagram, known as the Star of David in Jewish tradition, also appeared in alchemical texts as the Seal of Solomon, representing the union of fire and water, heaven and earth. For alchemists, this symbolized the harmony of opposites, a concept mirrored in the cathedral's very structure, where soaring vaults meet grounded buttresses. But the hexagram's role goes beyond symbolism. Modern photometric studies reveal that these windows act as celestial calendars. At noon on the summer solstice, sunlight strikes Chartres' hexagram at an angle that projects its inverted twin onto the nave floor, creating a fleeting 12-pointed star. This phenomenon isn't accidental. The window's mullions are spaced at intervals corresponding to Fibonacci ratios, fine-tuning the light's behavior. Yet the mystery deepens when you consider who designed these features. Medieval master builders left few written records, but surviving lodge manuscripts from Mason guilds show geometric puzzles involving hexagrams alongside instructions for calculating load-bearing weights. Some scholars argue these shapes served as mnemonic devices, helping artisans replicate complex proportions without advanced mathematics. Others point to the influence of Islamic scholars, whose translations of Greek texts reintroduced sacred geometry to Europe during the Crusades. The hexagram's recurrence in Islamic tilework, as seen in Spain's Alhambra, lends credence to this cultural cross-pollination. Light itself may hold the final clue. The hexagram's interlocking triangles create a natural diffraction grating, splitting sunlight into prismatic bands that paint the cathedral's interior with shifting hues. During Mass, these chromatic waves would have bathed congregants in what medieval theologians called lux divina, divine light, a sensory metaphor for spiritual illumination. Whether serving as cosmic diagrams, structural templates, or luminous sacraments, the hexagrams of Gothic cathedrals challenge our assumptions about medieval thought. They remind us that to these builders, geometry wasn't just a tool, it was a sacred language, whispered through stone and glass across the centuries. The Colosseum's towering walls curve with a precision that would challenge modern architects, a perfect ellipse stretching 188 meters long and 156 meters wide. Its form so exact that even today, whispers on one side can be heard clearly across the arena. This isn't just aesthetic brilliance, it's acoustic and optical engineering perfected 2,000 years before the invention of calculus. How did Roman builders, armed with nothing more than ropes and plumb bobs, craft a shape that requires advanced mathematics to replicate? The answer lies in their mastery of empirical geometry, a blend of observation, iteration, and sheer ingenuity. At first glance, an ellipse might seem simple, a stretched circle. But its mathematical definition involves two fixed focal points, with every point on the curve maintaining a constant sum of distances to these foci. The Colosseum's builders couldn't rely on equations. Instead, they likely used a practical method involving stakes and loops. Imagine two pegs driven into the ground at the ellipse's intended focal points. A loop of rope wrapped around both pegs, when pulled taut with a moving marker, naturally traces an ellipse as the marker moves. This low-tech approach, known as the gardener's method, would have allowed Roman engineers to scale the shape to monumental proportions, adjusting the distance between foci to fine-tune acoustics and sightlines. The brilliance of this design becomes clear when you consider the Colosseum's dual purpose. As a venue for gladiatorial combat and theatrical spectacles, it needed to project sound and provide unobstructed views to 80,000 spectators. The elliptical shape accomplishes both. Sound waves reflecting off the curved walls converge toward the central axis, creating natural amplification. Meanwhile, the graduated seating, another geometric marvel, ensures that every seat offers a direct sightline to the arena floor, with no column blocking the view. Modern stadiums still emulate this layout, though they rely on computer modeling to achieve what the Romans did with ropes and intuition. But the mystery deepens when you examine variations across the empire. Amphitheaters in Verona, Pompeii, and El Gem exhibit subtle differences in their elliptical proportions, tailored to local conditions. The Verona Arena, for instance, has a narrower ellipse, enhancing acoustics for musical performances, while El Gem's broader curve prioritizes crowd visibility. This adaptability suggests Roman engineers didn't just copy a template, they understood how to tweak the ellipse's geometry for specific functional needs. Some scholars argue they might have used water levels or shadow angles to verify curves during construction, though no surviving manuals confirm this. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue comes from Vitruvius, the famed Roman architect whose 10-volume De Architectura outlines principles of design. While he never explicitly describes elliptical construction, he emphasizes harmony between proportion and purpose, advising builders to study nature's patterns. The ellipse, after all, appears in planetary orbits, and the human eye's curvature forms the Romans could have observed and emulated. Their amphitheaters weren't just buildings, they were embodiments of cosmic order, where geometry served as the invisible hand guiding both artistry and function. Today, as laser scans reveal millimeter-perfect curves in the Colosseum's weathered stones, we're left to wonder, did the Romans grasp the mathematical profundity of their shapes, or was their genius purely practical? Either way, their amphitheaters stand as silent testimonials to a time when intuition and observation could rival the power of equations. In an age before blueprints, they turned dirt and rope into geometry lessons for the ages, proof that perfection doesn't always require a calculator. Sometimes all it takes is a keen eye, a steady hand, and the wisdom to let nature's patterns guide the way. Scattered across Britain and Brittany, the ancient stone circles of Europe share a secret hidden in plain sight. Their builders used the same ruler. Not a physical tool, but a universal unit of measurement now called the megalithic yard, first identified by engineer Alexander Thom in the mid-20th century. After surveying over 600 Neolithic sites with painstaking precision, Thom noticed something astonishing. Structures separated by hundreds of miles and built centuries apart all incorporated a standard length of approximately 2.72 feet. At Stonehenge, the spacing between upright stones measures whole multiples of this unit. At Scotland's Callanish stones, the diameters of concentric rings follow the same rule. Even France's Carnac alignments, with their thousands of standing stones, adhere to this invisible grid. The implications are staggering. A pan-European civilization, or at least a shared system of knowledge, thrived 5,000 years ago without writing or formal empires. But how could such consistency survive across generations? The megalithic yard wasn't just a rough estimate. Tom's data revealed it was accurate to within 1/4 of an inch across sites. This level of precision suggests more than just craftsmen eyeballing distances. One theory points to pendulum science. A simple rope pendulum with a length of half a megalithic yard swings with a frequency that could have been used to standardize measurements. Neolithic builders might have counted swings between markers, creating a reproducible unit independent of human error. Others propose the yard derived from astronomical observations, perhaps a fraction of the length of a shadow cast by the sun at a specific solstice. Yet the most compelling evidence comes from the human body itself. Tom noted that the megalithic yard closely matches the average stride length of a tall adult male, multiplied by a sacred ratio found in Pythagorean triples. This fusion of anatomy and mathematics hints at a lost system of metrological geometry, where units weren't arbitrary but derived from cosmic and biological constants. What's even more puzzling is how this standard endured. Without written records or centralized authority, the knowledge must have been transmitted orally or through apprenticeship. Some researchers suggest secretive guilds of megalithic surveyors traveled between sacred sites, training local builders. The uniformity of the yard implies rigorous quality control, perhaps through master rods of stone or wood kept at key locations. Fragments of carved stone rods found in Orkney and Brittany could be fragments of these ancient standards. Alternatively, the unit might have been preserved through ritual. If the megalithic yard was tied to celestial cycles or mythological narratives, its accuracy could have been maintained as sacred lore, passed down with the same care as creation stories. The megalithic yard's legacy challenges our assumptions about prehistoric Europe. These weren't isolated tribes piling rocks haphazardly. They were precision engineers working to a shared blueprint. The stones they left behind aren't just monuments, they're frozen equations, whispering of a time when measurement was magic and the land itself was a canvas for celestial mathematics. As laser scans reveal ever more hidden geometries in these ancient circles, one question lingers: what other forgotten sciences might still lie buried beneath the moss and heather? Ancient Sanskrit texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana describe Vimana's mythical flying chariots with intricate geometric designs that eerily mirror principles of modern aerodynamics. These celestial vehicles, said to be powered by Mercury vortex engines and adorned with domes, fins, and streamlined hulls, bear an uncanny resemblance to contemporary aircraft. The Vaimanika Shastra, a controversial early 20th century text claiming to document ancient flight technology, details Vimanas with delta wings, gyroscopic stabilizers, and even electromagnetic propulsion systems. Skeptics dismiss these descriptions as poetic metaphor or later embellishments, but the precision of the geometric forms raises unsettling questions. How could texts dating back over 2 millennia depict features like airfoil curvature and lift-generating angles without some basis in observed or inherited knowledge? One striking parallel lies in the Rukma Vimana, described as a pyramidal craft with layered, triangular wing surfaces, a design that echoes the stealth geometry of modern drones. The Sundara Vimana, meanwhile, is said to have had a bell-shaped hull with concentric rings, resembling the lenticular profiles of UFO sightings and experimental aircraft like the Avrakar. Even more perplexing are the materials mentioned: lightweight alloys called trinitraloha, capable of withstanding extreme heat and pressure, and energy-absorbing crystals that sound suspiciously like piezoelectric components. These details aren't just fantastical, they align with the engineering constraints of flight in ways that defy coincidence. The debate intensifies when examining Hindu temple iconography. Carvings at temples like Belur and Halebid depict structures that look unsettlingly like rocket ships, complete with exhaust plumes and segmented stages. A 10th century panel at the Chichen temple even shows a figure seated inside a bulbous, finned vehicle gripping control levers, a scene that wouldn't seem out of place in a sci-fi schematic. While mainstream archaeology attributes these to symbolic representations of celestial realms, the specificity of the geometries suggests something more tangible. Could this be evidence of lost technology, or simply the human mind's tendency to project familiar shapes onto the unknown? Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory argue that Vimana descriptions reflect encounters with advanced civilizations, later mythologized. Others propose a middle ground, that Hindu scholars, through deep meditation and observation of birds and wind patterns, intuited aerodynamic principles long before formal science codified them. The Vedas speak of Siddhi's supernormal powers gained through spiritual practice, which might have included insights into physics and energy manipulation. Yet the most tantalizing clue comes from the texts themselves. The Samarangana Sutradhara, an 11th century treatise on architecture, dedicates an entire chapter to Vimana construction, specifying ratios for wing curvature and propulsion chamber dimensions. These instructions, though couched in mystical language, follow mathematical progressions that align with fluid dynamics. Modern engineers who have attempted to model these designs report surprising feasibility, with some configurations generating stable lift in wind tunnels. Whether these geometries stem from forgotten science, divine revelation, or sheer imaginative brilliance, they challenge our linear view of technological progress. The Vimana texts don't just describe flight, they encode a worldview where matter and spirit, geometry and cosmology were threads of the same cosmic fabric. In a world racing toward AI and interstellar travel, these ancient blueprints whisper a humbling reminder: innovation might not always move forward. Sometimes it circles back, waiting for us to rediscover what was already known. The Forbidden City's crimson walls and golden roofs conceal a geometric secret, an invisible web of octagons woven into its very foundations. From the 8-sided pavilions dotting the gardens to the octagonal patterns in floor tiles and window lattices, this shape isn't just decorative, it's the architectural heartbeat of Imperial China's cosmic order. Feng Shui masters designed the palace as a microcosm of the universe, where every angle and alignment channeled the elusive dance of yin and yang. But why the octagon? In Chinese cosmology, 8 symbolizes completeness, representing the 8 directions of the compass, the 8 trigrams of the I Ching, and even the 8 immortal beings of Taoist lore. This wasn't mere superstition. It was a precision-engineered system to harness the unseen forces of Kai, the life force flowing through all things. Walk the central axis leading to the Hall of Supreme Harmony, and you're tracing a sacred meridian, but step off path and the geometry shifts subtly. Secondary buildings and courtyards rotate at precise angles to deflect negative energy, their octagonal forms acting like spiritual baffles. The number 8's magic isn't just symbolic, it's mathematical. Divide a circle by 8, and you get 45-degree angles, which happen to be the exact increments needed to harmonize with Beijing's latitude. During solstices, sunlight pierces certain octagonal windows at angles that illuminate hidden carvings of dragons and phoenixes, turning the palace into a colossal sundial. Modern laser scans reveal that these alignments aren't approximate. They're accurate to within fractions of a degree, suggesting builders used tools like the Luopan, a geomantic compass calibrated with astronomical data. Yet the octagon's power goes beyond alignment. Earthquake engineers recently discovered that the Forbidden City's octagonal pavilions are among its most resilient structures. Their symmetrical distribution of weight allows them to sway during tremors without collapsing, a feature mirrored in the octagonal base of the Temple of Heaven. This duality, spiritual harmony and physical stability, hints at a lost science where geometry bridged the tangible and intangible. Even the palace's moat follows an octagonal-inspired zigzag, not for defense but to slow and purify Kai as it enters the complex. The most tantalizing mystery, how this knowledge was standardized across dynasties. Blueprints for the Forbidden City burned with the Ming archives, yet every Qing-era edition adhered to the same octagonal principles. Some scholars believe master builders encoded the rules in Gongchapu, cryptic notation systems passed down through guilds. Others point to the Yingzhou Fashi, an 11th century manual prescribing octagonal ratios for balancing heavenly and earthly currents. Whatever the method, the result is undeniable. A palace that doesn't just house emperors but orchestrates the very energy of the cosmos, one 8-sided stone at a time. At the heart of what is now Illinois, the ancient city of Cahokia once pulsed with life, a sprawling metropolis that dwarfed medieval London in its heyday. Today, its surviving earthworks tell a silent but staggering story. The grandest of these, Monk's Mound, rises like a man-made mountain, its 4 terraces precisely aligned to the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west, with an accuracy that rivals modern surveying tools. But the true marvel lies beyond mere orientation. The entire city functions as a celestial clock, with key mounds marking the sunrise and sunset points of solstices and equinoxes. The Woodhenge, a circle of wooden posts rebuilt near the site, captures the first rays of the summer solstice sunrise with the same precision as Stonehenge's heel stone. Yet this engineering feat emerged entirely independently, worlds apart from European or Mesoamerican influences. What makes Cahokia's alignments extraordinary isn't just their precision, it's the sheer scale of their coordination. The city's central plaza, flanked by mounds, forms a perfect rectangle aligned 17 degrees east of true north. This seemingly arbitrary angle isn't a miscalculation. It mirrors the azimuth of the summer solstice sunrise as viewed from Monk's Mound summit. At dawn on the longest day of the year, the sun would have crowned a smaller mound directly to the southeast, a deliberate sightline that transformed the city into a theater of celestial drama. Even more intriguing, the layout encodes lunar cycles. The Fox Mound, positioned just southwest of the plaza, aligns with the moon's southernmost rising point during its 18.6-year standstill cycle, an event so subtle that modern astronomers use computers to predict it. The mystery deepens when you consider the tools available to Cahokia's builders. Unlike the Maya or Egyptians, they left no written records or complex astronomical instruments. Yet their earthworks suggest an intimate knowledge of the sky's rhythms, possibly gleaned from generations of naked eye observation. Some researchers propose they used horizon markers, natural or artificial, to track the sun's shifting positions. Others point to the city's grid-like layout, which may have served as a giant calendrical device, with mounds acting as seasonal markers. But neither theory fully explains how they achieved such consistency across hundreds of acres without a standardized system of measurement. Then there's the cultural puzzle. Cahokia's alignments mirror those of distant Mesoamerican cities like Teotihuacan, yet there's no evidence of direct contact. Did a shared astronomical tradition span the continents, carried by word of mouth along trade routes? Or is this a case of convergent innovation, separate civilizations arriving at the same solutions under similar skies? The absence of surviving oral traditions among Cahokia's descendants, like the Osage or Quapaw, leaves us with only the mounds themselves as silent witnesses. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't how they built this celestial city, but why. For the Cahokians, astronomy wasn't just science, it was sacred. The solstice alignments coincide with ceremonial deposits found in the mounds, rare minerals, ritual burials, and caches of finely crafted arrowheads. The sun's path may have dictated the timing of harvests, political gatherings, or even human sacrifices. In a world where earth and sky were inseparable, aligning mounds to the cosmos wasn't just practical, it was a dialogue with the divine. Today, as laser scans reveal hidden post holes and buried roadways, we're left to marvel at a civilization that mapped the heavens onto the earth. Cahokia's mounds don't just point to the sun, they whisper of a time when the sky was a living compass and humans walked in step with its ancient rhythms. In their silent geometry, we glimpse a world where architecture wasn't just built, but woven into the very fabric of the universe. Step into the echoing nave of a medieval monastery chapel, and you'll feel the Gregorian chants before you hear them, a vibration in the stones, a hum in the air, as if the very walls are singing. This isn't just an illusion. Chapels like those in Cluny Abbey or Mont Saint Michel were engineered with mathematical precision, their vaulted ceilings and columned aisles proportioned to amplify specific resonant frequencies. The dimensions of these sacred spaces mirror the harmonic ratios found in the chants themselves, turning architecture into a colossal musical instrument. But how did 12th century monks, without oscilloscopes or acoustic theory, design buildings that behave like finely tuned violins? The answer might lie in the intersection of divine inspiration and empirical genius. Take the Abbey Church of St. Savin-sur-Gartempe, where the nave's length-to-width ratio is exactly 2:1, the same interval as a musical octave. When monks sang in unison, their voices would bounce off the walls at intervals that reinforced rather than muddied the sound, creating a natural reverberation lasting up to 8 seconds. Even more striking, the side chapel's dimensions correspond to perfect fourths and fifths, intervals that form the backbone of medieval harmonies. Modern acoustic engineers have confirmed that these ratios produce standing waves, where sound energy distributes evenly, eliminating dead spots and amplifying overtones. The result, a single voice could fill the entire space, shimmering with an unearthly clarity that felt less like performance and more like revelation. Skeptics argue this could be coincidence after all. Simple ratios like these are common in architecture, but the evidence tilts toward intention when you examine the monks' own writings. The Micrologus, an 11th century music theory text by Guido of Arezzo, explicitly links harmonic intervals to spiritual perfection, describing how certain proportions please God's ear. Manuscripts from the Benedictine order even include sketches of churches with dimensions labeled in musical terms, like diapason octave or diapent fifth. This wasn't just metaphor, it was a blueprint for acoustic transcendence. The mystery deepens when you consider the tools they used. Without decibel meters or frequency analyzers, how did they test their designs? One clue lies in the Schola Cantorum, the singing schools where monks trained. These spaces often featured whispering galleries, curved walls that carried soft tones across vast distances, allowing novices to experience acoustics firsthand. Builders might have relied on these intuitive lessons, scaling up what worked in small chambers to grand cathedrals. Another theory points to water. Some monasteries placed temporary basins of water in unfinished chapels, observing how ripples reacted to sung notes to gauge resonance before the walls were sealed. Yet the most compelling proof is experiential. Stand in the choir of the Basilica of St. Denis at dusk, when the light slants through stained glass and the air cools the stones. When a chant begins, the notes don't just fill the space, they activate it, as if the building itself joins the prayer. This fusion of geometry and devotion wasn't accidental. To medieval minds, music and math were two faces of divine order, a belief rooted in Pythagorean philosophy and biblical verses like, "All things were made by number, weight, and measure." By encoding these ratios into stone, the monks weren't just crafting spaces for worship, they were building vessels to carry human voices into the celestial chorus. The stones of these chapels still sing today, a testament to a time when architecture wasn't just seen or touched, but heard. In their silent ratios, they guard a secret, that beauty and precision are never separate, and that the line between science and the sacred might be thinner than we think. Wander into the heart of Istanbul's Blue Mosque, and your gaze will inevitably be drawn upward, not to the heavens, but to a kaleidoscope of tilework so precise it seems to defy the limits of human hands. These intricate mosaics, composed of thousands of interlocking star and polygon patterns, hold a secret. They're visual echoes of one of mathematics' most elusive puzzles, the squaring of the circle. This ancient problem, constructing a square with the same area as a given circle using only a compass and straightedge, was proven impossible with classical tools in the 19th century, requiring calculus for an exact solution. Yet here, in 14th century Islamic art, tessellating shapes come tantalizingly close to achieving the geometrically unachievable. How did artisans without formal trigonometry or symbolic algebra encode such sophisticated approximations into their designs? The genius lies in their approach to infinity. Islamic tilework sidesteps the need for exact quadrature through infinite recursion, a concept modern math would later formalize as fractal geometry. Take the Jiri tiles found in mosques from Spain to Samarkand. These pre-cut ceramic pieces, often shaped as decagons, pentagons, or bodies, fit together in repeating patterns that create the illusion of curves emerging from straight lines. At a distance, the interlocking stars appear to weave seamless circular motifs, their vertices dancing around implied perfect spheres. This isn't just artistic trickery, it's a deliberate mathematical feint. By breaking the circle's area into an endless series of diminishing polygons, a technique anticipating calculus's limit theory, the designers achieved a visual solution where numerical precision faltered. What's even more astonishing is the consistency of these techniques across centuries and continents. The Alhambra's Muqarnas ceilings, the Shah Mosque's dome, and the Suleymaniye's mihrabs all employ subtly varied approaches to the same problem. Some use star and cross patterns where 8 pointed stars nest within squares, their overlapping arms forming infinitesimal curved transitions. Others deploy knotwork designs where zigzagging lines mimic the circumference of an invisible circle. Modern computer analysis reveals these patterns often approximate pi to within 0.01%, a margin so slim it rivals Renaissance calculations. But the real mystery isn't the how, it's the why. Unlike Western mathematicians who saw squaring the circle as an intellectual challenge, Islamic scholars viewed it as a spiritual metaphor. The circle symbolized the infinite divine perfection. The square represented the material, earthly domain. Bridging them geometrically was an act of cosmic harmony, a way to manifest God's unity in physical form. This philosophical drive led to breakthroughs in practical geometry. Artisans developed the compass and rule method, where a fixed compass opening could generate complex proportions through sequential rotations, a technique preserved in manuscripts like the Topkapi scroll, which served as a master pattern book for guilds across the Islamic world. The tools themselves hold clues. Archaeologists have uncovered brass compasses with adjustable hinges and rulers marked with angle ratios matching tile patterns. These weren't crude implements but precision instruments, calibrated through generations of trial and error. Some mosaics even embed their own construction guides. Faint incised lines beneath the glaze reveal where compass points were anchored, proving that what looks like freehand artistry was actually meticulous plotted geometry. Perhaps the most striking evidence of intent lies in the errors, or rather, the lack thereof. When conservators restored the 14th century Madrasa Bu Inania in Fes, they expected to find inconsistencies beneath centuries of wear. Instead, laser scans showed the original tilework deviated less than 2 millimeters across entire walls. This wasn't just skill, it was systemic. Guilds maintained strict geometric canons, with master artisans memorizing hundreds of pattern algorithms through mnemonic poems and hands-on apprenticeships. Their knowledge was so robust that when the Mongols sacked cities like Baghdad, surviving craftsmen could reconstruct entire mosques from memory, their patterns reproducing like sacred DNA. Today, as mathematicians decode these designs using group theory and symmetry operations, the tiles whisper an unsettling truth: art preceded formal proof. While Western academia dismissed squaring the circle as impossible, Islamic artisans were quietly approximating it through intuition and iteration. Their mosaics don't just adorn walls, they chronicle a parallel mathematical universe where compass and faith could, if not square the circle, at least dance gracefully around its edges. Buried in the peat bogs of Scotland, a set of mysterious carved stones defies the timeline of mathematical discovery. These Neolithic artifacts, dating back over 4,000 years, bear intricate patterns that, when examined closely, reveal the 5 Platonic solids tetrahedron, cube, octahedron, dodecahedron, and icosahedron, perfect three-dimensional forms with identical faces, edges, and angles. Plato wouldn't formally describe these shapes until 300 BCE, framing them as the building blocks of the cosmos: fire, earth, air, water, and the universe. Yet here they are, etched into stone millennia earlier by hands that left no written records or equations. Were these geometric blueprints sacred talismans, teaching aids for an oral tradition, or evidence of a lost scientific priesthood? The most famous of these artifacts, the Toei ball from Aberdeenshire, fits snugly in the palm but carries cosmic weight. Its surface is divided into 4 symmetrical lobes, each further subdivided into smaller spheres, a 2-dimensional shadow of a 3-dimensional octahedron when viewed from the right angle. Even more astonishing, similar carvings from the Skara Bree settlement mirror the icosahedron's 20 triangular faces, suggesting this wasn't an isolated discovery but a shared geometric language. Modern 3D scans confirm these patterns aren't abstract decorations. They're precise projections of volumetric shapes, as if the carvers understood how to unfold solids into flat nets, a concept formal mathematics wouldn't articulate for thousands of years. How did Neolithic artisans grasp such advanced geometry? One theory points to their intimate relationship with natural crystals. The dodecahedron, for instance, mirrors the pyrite crystals found in Britain's mines, while the tetrahedron echoes the atomic structure of quartz. By observing these mineral formations, early humans might have intuited geometric truths without formal proofs. Another clue lies in the artifact's context. Many were found near ceremonial sites or burials, hinting at ritual use. The Misho-chambered cairn, aligned to the winter solstice sunset, contained stones marked with Platonic-inspired patterns suggesting geometry served as a bridge between earthly and celestial realms. The mystery deepens when considering the tools available. Without protractors or compasses, how did they achieve such precision? Experiments with replica stones show that rolling carved spheres in wet clay leaves impressions revealing hidden symmetries, a possible hands-on method for exploring form. Oral traditions may have preserved geometric knowledge through songs or stories, embedding mathematical relationships in myth. Some researchers even propose these stones functioned as primitive astronomical models, their shapes representing planetary orbits or constellations, an idea Plato himself would later echo in his celestial spheres. What's undeniable is that these artifacts challenge the linear narrative of mathematical progress. The Platonic solids weren't discovered by Greek philosophers. They were rediscovered, preserved in stone by a culture that saw geometry not as abstraction but as sacred craft. The carving's durability suggests their makers intended them to outlast generations, a silent testament to a truth we're only now beginning to hear, that the language of the universe may be written not in words, but in shapes older than civilization itself. High above the cobbled squares of Prague, Strasbourg, and Wells, medieval clock towers perform a mechanical ballet that defies their age, gears turning with such precision they predict celestial events centuries before telescopes or calculus existed. The Prague astronomical clock, built in 1410, doesn't just tell time, it maps the sun's path through the zodiac, tracks lunar phases, and even displays planetary positions with an accuracy that would make a Renaissance astronomer pause. What's truly baffling isn't the clock's complexity, but the fact that its creators designed it while still believing the sun revolved around the Earth. How did craftsmen with no understanding of heliocentrism engineer machines that mirrored cosmic truths they couldn't yet comprehend? The answer lies in the clock's guts, a labyrinth of interlocking gears and escapements that form a mechanical model of the Ptolemaic universe. Each brass cog serves a purpose. One set calculates the sun's apparent motion, another drives the moon's orbit, while a separate assembly tracks the positions of visible planets against a starry backdrop. The precision is staggering. The lunar gear, for instance, incorporates a subtle irregularity to account for the moon's elliptical orbit, a refinement even Copernicus's early models lacked. Modern engineers have dismantled these mechanisms only to find tolerances within fractions of a millimeter, achieved with hand-forged tools and empirical trial and error. But the real mystery isn't the how, it's the who. Medieval guilds guarded their techniques fiercely, yet the same intricate designs appear simultaneously in clocks separated by hundreds of miles. The Strasbourg clock's planetary dial, completed in 1354, mirrors the gear ratios of the later Prague clock with eerie similarity. This wasn't just shared inspiration. It suggests a lost network of master horologists, possibly trained by a singular, unrecorded genius. Some historians point to the shadowy figure of Giovanni da Dondi, whose 14th century writings describe an astronomical clock so advanced it tracked eclipses decades in advance. Others speculate about Arabic influences. Muslim scholars like al-Jazari had already built elaborate water clocks centuries earlier, and Crusader contacts might have transmitted these ideas westward. The clock's cultural role deepens the enigma. These weren't mere timekeepers but theological statements, their rotating apostles and Judgment Day trumpets reinforcing Christian cosmology. Yet their mechanics often contradicted church doctrine. The Wells Cathedral clock, installed around 1390, includes a dial showing Earth as a sphere, a shape debated until Columbus's voyages. Did the craftsmen know more than they let on, or were they unwittingly encoding heliocentric clues into their designs? The clock's survival hints at a delicate dance between science and faith. Their celestial displays were deemed acceptable so long as they proved divine order, even when their gears whispered otherwise. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in the materials. Medieval clockmakers favored a unique alloy of brass and silver called latten, which resisted corrosion while expanding minimally with temperature changes, a critical property for maintaining accuracy. Metallurgical analysis shows this alloy's composition matches Persian astronomical instruments from the same era, suggesting a technological exchange along the Silk Road. But without blueprints or manuals, we're left to reverse engineer their knowledge from the clocks themselves, like archaeologists deciphering a civilization from its artifacts. Today, as these ancient timekeepers still mark the hours with celestial precision, they challenge our assumptions about medieval science. These weren't primitive devices but analog computers, their brass minds calculating the heavens with a sophistication that bridges the gap between magic and machinery. In their turning gears, we glimpse a forgotten world where art and science were one, and where the sky's secrets were written not in equations, but in carefully crafted metal teeth. Rising above the jungles of Khajuraho and the riverbanks of Varanasi, the towering shikaras of Hindu temples don't just reach for the heavens. They spiral toward them with the same mathematical inevitability as a fern unfurling or a galaxy rotating. These sacred spires, carved from sandstone and granite, follow the logarithmic spiral of the golden ratio, their curved profiles expanding outward at a rate of 1.618 for every quarter turn, identical to the growth pattern of nautilus shells and sunflower seed arrangements. It's as if the architects didn't merely build these towers but coaxed them into being, allowing stone to follow the same silent geometric laws that govern living things. What makes this phenomenon extraordinary isn't just its precision, it's the cultural context. While Fibonacci would formalize this sequence in 13th century Italy, Hindu temple builders had already been encoding it into stone for over 500 years. Take the Candaria Mahadeva temple, where the central shikara's curvature traces a perfect phi spiral when viewed in cross-section. Each sculpted layer, decorated with celestial nymphs and deities, widens proportionally to the one below, creating an optical illusion of upward movement even in static stone. Modern photogrammetry reveals that the tower's width increases by a factor of phi with every vertical segment, matching the growth rate found in hurricane cloud formations and elephant tusk curves. This isn't superficial ornamentation, it's structural poetry where aesthetics and engineering merge through sacred geometry. The builders left no equations or treatises explaining this choice, yet the recurrence of this spiral across temples from Odisha to Tamil Nadu suggests it was intentional, a visual hymn to the universe's hidden order. Why would ancient architects devote such effort to mimicking organic patterns? The answer might lie in the Vedas themselves, which describe creation as an unfolding spiral, the serpent Ananta floating on cosmic waters, its coils mirroring the spiraling arms of the universe. The shikara's form embodies this concept, its phi progression symbolizing the soul's expansion toward enlightenment. Even the construction process reflected this philosophy. Master craftsmen, known as esthapotes, began each tower by drawing a seed diagram called the Vastu Purusha Mandala, its concentric squares and circles establishing proportional rules that automatically generated phi relationships. They didn't need calculators, their geometric templates passed down through guilds embedded the ratio inherently. The practical benefits of this design are as profound as the symbolic ones. The logarithmic spiral distributes weight evenly, allowing these slender towers to withstand monsoon winds and earthquakes, a feature bioengineers now emulate in skyscraper designs. The pattern also creates harmonic resonance. When temple bells ring, the spiral shape amplifies specific frequencies, making chants audible across entire cities. Most remarkably, some shikaras align their spiral apexes with celestial events. At Konark's Sun Temple, the main tower's curve points directly at the solstice sunrise, casting a shadow that spirals down the temple steps like a descending helix of light. This fusion of math and spirituality challenges our modern divisions between science and art. To the esthapotes, the golden spiral wasn't just a construction technique, it was a divine signature, visible in temple towers and tidal whirlpools alike. Their silent stones ask us a radical question. What if the sacred isn't beyond nature's laws but written into them? The shikaras stand as frozen equations, proving that devotion and geometry might simply be two languages for the same eternal truth. Walk through the cobblestone streets of Cusco, and you'll find yourself brushing against walls that defy logic, stone blocks so precisely cut at 90-degree angles, they fit together without mortar, their seams tighter than a razor's edge. These aren't rough-hewn boulders stacked haphazardly. They're geometric masterpieces, each corner meeting its neighbor with a perfection that would challenge modern masons armed with laser levels and diamond-tipped saws. The Incas shaped these stones without iron chisels or steel squares, without even the wheel to transport their materials. So how did they achieve such flawless right angles, and why does their precision still stump engineers today? The answer lies in a forgotten language of stone. Unlike the Egyptians who used copper tools to quarry limestone, or the Romans who relied on iron implements, the Incas worked primarily with harder igneous rocks like andesite and diorite, materials so tough, modern masons need carbide-tipped tools to cut them. Yet Inca walls show no signs of tool marks suggesting brute force. Instead, the stones bear subtle dimples and grooves, evidence of a technique called pecking, where workers patiently pounded the surface with handheld hammerstones, gradually refining the shape over weeks or months. But pecking alone can't explain the perfection of those right angles. Researchers like archaeologist Jean-Pierre Protzen have replicated the process using traditional methods, discovering that the Incas likely employed a system of wooden templates and plumb bobs to check their progress. These guides, possibly made from resilient quenua wood, would have allowed artisans to transfer angles from a master prototype to each stone, ensuring uniformity across entire walls. Yet the mystery deepens when you examine the stone's diversity. Some are small enough to lift by hand, others weigh several tons, but regardless of size, their angles remain consistent, suggesting the Incas didn't just rely on templates. They understood geometric principles that allowed them to scale proportions accurately. A clue may lie in their not-recorded accounting system, the quipu. These intricate chords used for census data and astronomical records could also have encoded architectural ratios, serving as a tactile blueprint for builders. Another theory points to the Incas' use of shadow casting. By observing how sunlight interacted with prototype stones at specific times of day, they might have calculated angles through shadow lengths, a technique later formalized by the Greeks as mnemonics. What's most striking isn't just the precision, but the purpose behind it. These walls weren't merely functional, they were seismic miracles. When earthquakes strike Cusco, as they often do, modern buildings crumble while Inca walls sway and settle back into place, their interlocking angles distributing energy like a geometric shock absorber. The 90-degree corners aren't arbitrary. They're part of a larger system where trapezoidal doorways and slightly inward-leaning walls create a self-stabilizing lattice. This implies the Incas didn't just cut perfect angles, they engineered them as part of a deliberate, holistic approach to survival in one of Earth's most unstable regions. The stones of Cusco whisper a radical idea. That precision isn't a product of technology, but of patience and perception. Without metal or wheels, the Incas turned rock into a dialogue between earth and sky, their walls standing not just as barriers, but as testaments to a civilization that measured progress not in tools, but in timelessness. Beneath the Pantheon's soaring dome, where sunlight streams through the oculus like a celestial spotlight, lies a hidden map of the heavens, not on the walls or ceiling, but underfoot. The marble floor, often overlooked by visitors craning their necks upward, is inlaid with intricate geometric patterns that mirror the 12 zodiac constellations. But this isn't just decorative symmetry. On specific feast days throughout the year, the sunbeam piercing the dome's apex strikes these zodiac markers with uncanny precision, turning the entire building into a colossal sundial and liturgical calendar combined. Imagine standing in the Pantheon on the spring equinox, watching that shaft of light ignite the Aries emblem at your feet, marking the sun's entry into a new astrological age. This alignment isn't accidental. It's a deliberate fusion of sacred geometry and celestial mechanics that challenges our understanding of Roman scientific knowledge. What makes this zodiac floor extraordinary is its dual function, both practical and mystical. The Pantheon wasn't just a temple to all gods. It was a cosmic mirror designed to synchronize earthly rituals with celestial cycles. Historical records suggest that on the emperor's birthday, the sunlight would illuminate a specific pattern linked to his patron deity, symbolizing divine favor. The floor's concave curvature, often mistaken for simple drainage, actually compensates for the sun's changing angle throughout the year, ensuring the light hits its targets with consistent accuracy. Modern laser scans reveal that the zodiac symbols aren't placed randomly. Their positions correspond to actual star positions during Rome's founding era, suggesting the floor may encode a celestial snapshot from the city's mythical birth date. Yet the real mystery lies in the precision of these alignments. The zodiac's 12 sectors aren't equal 30-degree divisions as in modern astrology. They're irregular, reflecting the actual uneven sizes of the constellations in the night sky. This implies direct astronomical observation rather than reliance on Greek or Babylonian star charts. Even more perplexing is how the builders accounted for precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that shifts the zodiac's alignment over centuries. The Pantheon's floor seems calibrated for the celestial patterns of the 1st century BCE, when the original temple was constructed, rather than its 2nd century CE reconstruction. Did Roman priests understand this 26,000-year cycle, or did they inherit astronomical data from an even older tradition? The answer might lie in the building's hidden acoustics. The zodiac patterns aren't just visual, they're sonic markers. When spoken from specific points on the floor, voices resonate at frequencies that correspond to ancient musical modes associated with each zodiac sign. A chant uttered from the Cancer emblem, for instance, amplifies in a way that mimics the watery, musical intervals the Romans linked to that constellation. This suggests the Pantheon wasn't just a calendar in stone, but an instrument for harmonic ritual, where sound and light conspired to create immersive celestial theater. Perhaps most startling is what this reveals about Roman priestly astronomers. While we often credit medieval monks with preserving astronomical knowledge, the Pantheon's floor proves that 1st century Romans possessed sophisticated star lore, possibly passed down through closed mystery cults. The floor's design includes subtle corrections for atmospheric refraction, the bending of sunlight near the horizon, a phenomenon not formally documented until the Islamic Golden Age. This level of detail implies generations of naked eye observations refined to near scientific precision. Today, as tourists tread unwittingly across this star map, the Pantheon's true genius remains half hidden. Its floor doesn't just reflect the zodiac, it captures a moment when architecture, astronomy, and theology were threads of the same golden cord. In its marble veins flows the blood of a civilization that didn't just worship the stars but danced with them in stone and light, leaving behind a puzzle that still turns with the seasons. Notre Dame's cavernous nave doesn't just echo with chants, it sings them. Its very stones tuned to harmonies most visitors never notice. Stretch a measuring tape from the western entrance to the choir stalls, and you'll uncover a startling pattern. The nave's length, width, and height follow exact ratios found in medieval musical intervals. The central aisle spans precisely twice its width, mirroring the octave in music, the most fundamental harmonic relationship. The side aisles are proportioned as perfect fourths and fifths, intervals that form the backbone of Gregorian chant. This isn't poetic coincidence, it's architectural alchemy where space becomes sound made visible. But how did 13th century builders, lacking modern acoustical science, engineer structures that behave like giant resonating chambers? The secret lies in the blueprints, or rather, the lack thereof. Gothic master builders left few written plans, but surviving sketchbooks from Mason lodges reveal geometric diagrams labeled with musical terms like diapason octave and diapent fifth. At Chartres Cathedral, the cross-section of the nave forms a right triangle with sides in a 3-4-5 ratio, the same proportions that produce a major chord when plucked on a monochord, an ancient single-stringed instrument used to teach harmony. Modern laser scans show these ratios aren't approximate. They're accurate to within centimeters across 100-meter spans. When a choir sings in such a space, the vaulted ceilings and pillars amplify specific harmonic overtones while dampening dissonance, creating a bloom of sound that feels almost supernatural. What's even more astonishing is how these cathedrals adapt musical principles to their unique acoustical needs. Compare Notre Dame's bright, reverberant tones to the warmer sound of England's York Minster. The French cathedral's taller, narrower nave emphasizes higher frequencies, ideal for the melismatic flourishes of Parisian polyphony. York's broader proportions favor the rich lower registers of English choral music. This regional variation suggests builders weren't just copying templates, they tuned their cathedrals like luthiers crafting violins, tailoring each space to local musical traditions. The mystery deepens when you consider the tools available. Without oscilloscopes or frequency analyzers, how did medieval architects predict how sound would behave? One clue lies in their use of scale models. The Strasbourg Lodge's 13th century Bohut notebooks describe miniature chapels built with adjustable walls, where monks would chant to test resonance before full-scale construction. Another technique involved water-filled trenches to visualize sound waves. Ripples reflecting off model walls mimicked how voices would interact with the finished space. Yet the most compelling evidence comes from the cathedrals themselves. Stand beneath the crossing at Amiens where the transept meets the nave and clap your hands once. The echo doesn't decay randomly, it resolves into a chord-like cascade, the building's geometry filtering the sound into harmonic components. This phenomenon isn't accidental. Manuscripts from the Benedictine Abbey of Cluny describe sacred geometry, exercises where novices mapped musical intervals onto floor plans using ropes and pegs, turning the very earth into a musical staff. Were these sonic marvels intentional or emergent properties of aesthetic proportions? The answer might lie in medieval cosmology. To Gothic thinkers, music and math were two expressions of divine order, a belief rooted in Boethius's De Institution Musica, which declared harmonic ratios the foundation of the universe. By encoding these ratios into stone, architects weren't just building churches, they were constructing microcosms of a harmonious creation. When sunlight streams through stained glass, casting prismatic hues onto geometrically perfect floors, and voices rise through proportioned vaults, the effect isn't just beautiful, it's a theological statement. Today, as acoustic engineers use these ancient principles to design modern concert halls, the cathedrals stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten truth, that the line between art and science, between prayer and physics, might be thinner than we think. Their stones don't just echo with music, they are music frozen in time, waiting for us to listen anew. At the apex of Egypt's grandest pyramids, history whispers of a final, glittering piece now lost to time, the Pyramidion. These capstones, often sheathed in electrum, a dazzling alloy of gold and silver, once caught the first and last light of each day, transforming the pyramids into beacons visible for miles. Yet despite their prominence in ancient texts and tomb paintings, not a single original pyramidion remains intact today. Their absence isn't just an archaeological curiosity, it's a riddle wrapped in gold. Were these vanishing crowns merely symbolic, or did they harness energies modern science has yet to understand? The few surviving fragments and depictions tell a compelling story. The pyramidion of the Red Pyramid at Dosha, though broken, reveals traces of a thin gold layer, suggesting it was designed to reflect sunlight with mirror-like precision. Hieroglyphs describe these capstones as the Benben, a sacred object linked to the creation myth where the first land emerged from primordial waters. This wasn't just decoration, it was the architectural embodiment of the sun god Ra's power, the point where heaven and earth touched, but the physical evidence suggests something more pragmatic. The pyramidion's angles often match their pyramid slopes exactly, creating seamless transitions that modern engineers speculate could have minimized wind resistance or even channeled atmospheric electricity. One tantalizing theory involves the pyramid's purported ability to concentrate electromagnetic energy. Russian physicists studying the Great Pyramid's shape in 2018 found that its geometry theoretically focuses microwave-length radio waves into its internal chambers and base. A gold-capped pyramidion, acting as a conductive focal point, might have amplified this effect, potentially creating weak plasma discharges visible at dawn or dusk. Ancient texts speak of the sound of light emanating from pyramid tops, descriptions that align with the crackling static of coronal discharges. Could these missing caps have been part of a lost technology, transforming the pyramids into giant energy resonators? Yet the mystery deepens when examining their deliberate removal. Many pyramidions show signs of being pried off carefully, not looted hastily. Some scholars suggest they were recycled for their precious metals during economic crises, while others point to ritualistic motives. In the Turin Papyrus, a cryptic passage describes the lifting of the Benben during a pharaoh's ascension ceremony, hinting that capstones may have been ceremonially relocated to tombs or temples. The most provocative clue comes from the underground chamber of the bent pyramid, where a recess in the ceiling perfectly matches the dimensions of a pyramidion, as if the capstone was temporarily stored or activated there. Modern attempts to reconstruct these lost apexes reveal their sophistication. When architects recreated a gold-plated pyramidion for a documentary, sunlight striking its surface produced a visible halo effect, similar to a lighthouse's glare. Egyptologist Alexander Badoy noted that the capstone's angles often aligned with specific solar events. At Abu Simbel, a reconstructed pyramidion channels light into the temple's inner sanctum during the equinoxes. This precision suggests the ancients saw these crowns not just as ornaments, but as functional components of a larger celestial machine. Whether serving as spiritual lightning rods, energy concentrators, or solar calendars, the pyramidion's absence leaves a void in our understanding. Their gold may have been stripped, but the questions they spark remain untarnished, gleaming reminders that the pyramid's greatest secrets might have once crowned their summits, shining brightly until history itself looked away. Firuzabad rises from the Iranian plateau like a geometric mirage, a city frozen in the shape of a perfect octagon, its 8 walls radiating from a central tower with the precision of a compass-drawn blueprint. Built in the 3rd century by King Ardashir I, founder of the Sasanian Empire, this urban marvel stretches over 2 kilometers in diameter, its symmetrical streets and radial sectors defying the organic sprawl of most ancient settlements. What compelled a civilization without satellite imaging or computer modeling to impose such rigid geometry onto the landscape? The answer may lie in the Zoroastrian cosmos, where the octagon symbolized the eightfold division of the universe: earth, sky, and the six cardinal directions united in divine harmony. Walk the ruins today, and the city's mathematical audacity becomes tangible. The outer walls form an octagon so regular that modern surveys show less than 1 degree of deviation across its entire perimeter. Each of the 8 sectors contained identical residential blocks, public baths, and fire temples, arranged along streets that converged at the central Zoroastrian sanctuary like spokes on a wheel. This wasn't just urban planning, it was celestial cartography, mapping spiritual concepts onto terrestrial space. The octagon's recurrence in Sasanian art, from coinage to crown designs, suggests it held deeper significance than mere aesthetics. In Zoroastrian cosmology, the number 8 represented a Shavahishta, the divine principle of cosmic order and truth, making Firuzabad's layout a prayer rendered in stone and mortar. Yet the practical execution of this vision borders on miraculous. Without theodolites or standardized measuring chains, how did Sasanian engineers plot an octagon of this scale across rocky terrain? Archaeologists have uncovered clues in the construction itself. The city's foundation trenches reveal a sophisticated grid of ropes and wooden stakes, spaced at intervals corresponding to the Persian parasang, a unit of about 6 kilometers. But distance alone couldn't ensure angular precision. Researchers propose that builders used the sun's shadow, a method described in later Persian texts where aligned posts cast noonday shadows to verify 45-degree angles. Even more intriguing are the remnants of circular clay discs found near the central tower, etched with octagonal divisions that may have served as portable templates for checking wall alignments. The mystery intensifies when you consider Firuzabad's seismic resilience. Nestled in an earthquake-prone region, the city's octagonal design provided natural stability. Unlike rectangular grids vulnerable to diagonal shear forces during tremors, the octagon's radial symmetry distributes stress evenly, a principle modern architects rediscovered only after studying structures like the pentagon. The walls themselves were engineered with alternating layers of stone and mortarless brick, allowing controlled flexing. This duality, sacred geometry and pragmatic innovation, hints at a civilization that saw no divide between spiritual ideals and earthly survival. Perhaps the most enigmatic aspect is Firuzabad's legacy. Though the Sasanian Empire fell to Islamic conquests, the octagonal template reappeared centuries later in Baghdad's original round city and the Umayyad palaces of Syria. Were these later designs conscious homages, or did the octagon's structural advantages transcend cultural memory? The stones of Firuzabad offer no easy answers, only silent testament to a time when cities weren't just built, but cosmically inscribed, where every wall and avenue whispered of a universe ordered by unseen geometric hands. Deep in the jungles of Costa Rica's Diquis Delta, hundreds of stone spheres lie half-buried like forgotten marbles of the gods, some small enough to cradle in your palms, others towering over 2 meters tall and weighing as much as 2 elephants. What stuns archaeologists isn't just their size, but their impossible geometry. Laser scans reveal these spheres are so perfectly round that their diameters rarely deviate by more than 5 millimeters, even across surfaces spanning several feet. For comparison, that's like hand-carving a beach ball with irregularities no thicker than a credit card, except these orbs were crafted between 600 and 1500 years ago by a culture with no written language, no wheel, and no metal tools. The precision defies logic. How did the indigenous Boruca and Diquis peoples achieve such flawless symmetry using nothing but basalt hammers and patience? The mystery begins with the stones themselves. Carved from gabbro, a coarse volcanic rock, and harder granodiorite, the spheres required thousands of deliberate strikes to shape. But brute force alone couldn't explain their near mathematical perfection. Researchers experimenting with replica techniques discovered that artisans likely exploited natural fracture lines in the stone, using heat from controlled fires to weaken sections before pecking them away with smaller rocks. Yet even this method leaves telltale pockmark scars absent on many original spheres. Some specimens show traces of abrasive polishing with sand or leather, a process that could smooth surfaces but not guarantee uniform curvature. This suggests the makers employed a lost technique, perhaps involving wooden scaffolds or hanging plumb bobs to check roundness from multiple angles. Even more perplexing is the sphere's distribution. Found clustered in alignments near former villages and burial sites, some are arranged in straight lines or geometric patterns mirroring constellations. At El Silencio, the largest known sphere, weighing 16 tons, rests atop a man-made mound, its base carved to sit level without rocking. Such placements hint at astronomical or ceremonial purposes, though no oral traditions survive to confirm their role. Modern LiDAR surveys have revealed something even stranger. Clusters of spheres positioned at elevations that create perfect sightlines to solstice sunrises when viewed from key vantage points. Were these ancient calendars territorial markers or embodiments of celestial bodies? The stones guard their secrets tightly. The greatest enigma lies in their uniformity across centuries. Spheres dating 300 years apart show identical craftsmanship, implying standardized knowledge passed down through generations without written records. Some theorists propose they were rolled on log rails to test roundness, while others point to the string and water method, using taut cords and liquid levels to check symmetry. But neither explains how artisans maintained consistency while working on multiple spheres simultaneously, as excavations suggest they did. Then there's the haunting question of transportation. Many spheres were moved miles from their quarries through swamps and rugged terrain. The Boruca might have used wooden sledges and river barges, but moving multi-ton stones without damaging their flawless surfaces would require coordination rivaling Egypt's pyramid builders. The few spheres found unfinished offer silent clues. One abandoned mid-creation shows precise chisel marks radiating from center lines like longitude on a globe, suggesting a master template now lost to time. Today, as looters and erosion threaten these relics, their true purpose may forever elude us. But their silent perfection stands as a testament to a culture that turned rock into poetry, where geometry wasn't just measured, but felt in the hands and heart. In a world obsessed with digital precision, the spheres whisper an uncomfortable truth. Some forms of knowledge resist being rediscovered. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks brim with sketches of cities that never were, spiraling metropolises of concentric circles, grid-like districts aligned to celestial angles, and aqueducts curving with the same mathematical precision as the veins in a human wrist. These weren't just fanciful doodles, they were blueprints for urban utopias, where every street corner and sewer channel followed sacred geometric principles meant to harmonize human life with cosmic order. Take his design for an ideal Renaissance city conceived in the late 15th century. Its radial layout mirrors the Vitruvian man's proportions, with central piazzas acting as the heart and arteries of roads extending like outstretched limbs. But what's truly baffling isn't the artistry, it's the science. Leonardo's plans incorporated ventilation shafts positioned at golden ratio intervals to maximize airflow, preventing the plague-ridden miasmas of medieval cities. His tiered terraces and staggered buildings were calculated to ensure equal sunlight exposure for all residents, centuries before modern urban planners considered solar equity. Where did these ideas originate? Leonardo never traveled to Egypt or Mesopotamia, yet his designs echo the same geometric obsessions found in ziggurats and pyramid complexes. His use of the Fibonacci spiral in street layouts mirrors Hindu temple shikaras, while his obsession with octagonal towers recalls the Sasanian city of Firuzabad. Some scholars argue he accessed lost knowledge through his patron Ludovico Sforza's library, which housed Arabic translations of Greek and Indian texts on sacred geometry. Others point to his mentorship under Andrea Verrocchio, a goldsmith rumored to have ties to Hermetic circles preserving ancient architectural secrets. The most tantalizing clue lies in a marginal note in Leonardo's Codex Atlanticus, where he mentions studying the old builders' stones beneath Milan's cathedral, a possible reference to Celtic or Roman ruins embedded with geometric alignments. Yet Leonardo's genius wasn't just in borrowing, it was in synthesis. His city designs fused Platonic solids with practical engineering, creating spaces where aesthetics and function were inseparable. In one unrealized plan, he proposed hexagonal marketplaces with acoustically angled walls, ensuring vendors' voices carried clearly without echoing, a concept modern stadiums would replicate only in the 20th century. His bridges used parabolic arches based on the catenary curve, a shape he derived from studying hanging chains, but that also appears in Gothic vaults and Byzantine domes. This interplay of observation and intuition suggests Leonardo wasn't just copying older traditions, he was reverse engineering the universal principles behind them. The most provocative theory comes from his Madrid Codex, where sketches of fluidic streets mimic the branching patterns of rivers and trees. These biomimetic designs align with descriptions of Atlantis in Plato's Critias, which Leonardo reportedly studied a city said to have concentric canals, drawing their form from the divine circles of the heavens. Was he attempting to resurrect a legendary architectural tradition, or simply arriving independently at the same conclusions as ancient mystics? The answer may lie in his unpublished treatise on water movement, where he notes that the same laws which govern the whirl of a galaxy may be found in the swirl of a drain. To Leonardo, geometry wasn't just a tool, it was the hidden syntax of reality itself, written equally in starlight and stone. His unrealized cities stand as ghostly monuments to a vision where human habitats didn't conquer nature but conversed with it, their very streets humming with the same harmonies that spin planets and shape seashells. In his lines and curves, we glimpse a world where architecture wasn't just built, it was whispered into being, one perfect angle at a time. Beneath the turquoise waters of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, a labyrinth of stone ruins whispers of a civilization that mastered geometry not just on land but underwater. The sunken circular city of Atitlan, discovered in the labyrinthine cave systems of Sac-Acton, isn't a haphazard collection of collapsed walls. It's a meticulously planned network of concentric rings, aligned causeways, and pyramidal platforms that mirror the constellations above. What's baffling isn't just their precision, but their location. These structures weren't swallowed by rising seas. They were deliberately built where water already filled the caverns, their limestone blocks placed with millimeter-level accuracy in spaces accessible only by diving through narrow, flooded tunnels. Why would the ancient Maya go to such extremes to construct a city where no one could live? The key might lie in the city's unique shape. Atitlan's central plaza forms a near-perfect circle 200 meters in diameter, surrounded by 9 smaller platforms arranged in a Fibonacci spiral, a pattern found in hurricane formations and galaxy arms. This wasn't arbitrary. Maya cosmology viewed cenotes, these natural sinkholes filled with groundwater, as portals to Xibalba, the underworld. the circular design, echoing the sacred ceiba tree's roots that were believed to connect earthly and spiritual realms, may have served as a ceremonial gateway. Divers have uncovered offerings of jade, obsidian, and human remains placed at precise geometric nodes, suggesting rituals where architecture acted as a cosmic antenna tuning into other dimensions. Yet there's another, more pragmatic layer. The Yucatan's porous limestone made surface rivers non-existent. All freshwater came from these submerged cave systems. Atitlan's geometry might have been hydrologic engineering disguised as sacred art. The circular layout creates natural vortexes that prevent stagnation, while the platform's placement aligns with underground currents, funneling water toward storage chambers. Modern hydrologists mapping the site found that the causeways act like weirs, slowing water flow during dry seasons to maintain accessible pools. This duality, spiritual symbolism and survival science, hints at a civilization that saw no divide between the practical and the divine. The real enigma is how they built it. Without metal tools or underwater lighting, workers would have had minutes per dive to position multi-ton stones in total darkness. Recent experiments with replica Maya breath hold techniques suggest teams might have used woven reed ropes and buoyant log scaffolds to maneuver blocks into place. Even more perplexing are the architectural blueprints. How did planners communicate these complex designs to builders who couldn't see the full layout? Some researchers point to scaled clay models found in nearby ruins, miniature versions of the circular cities that could be studied above ground before construction. Then there's the question of flood resilience. Unlike coastal cities swallowed by rising oceans, Atitlan was designed to coexist with water. Its raised platforms mimic the adaptive architecture of Maya wetland farms, where elevated fields resisted inundation. The circular form, rare in Maya surface cities, may have been optimized to withstand cave collapses, a shape proven by modern engineers to distribute pressure evenly. This wasn't just ceremony, it was catastrophe-proof urban planning, a lesson from ancestors who knew their world was as fragile as it was sacred. Today, as climate change threatens coastal cities, Atitlan's silent stones float a radical idea that the best way to survive water isn't to fight it, but to build in conversation with it. The Maya didn't just see geometry in the stars, they read it in the ripples of flooded caves, turning necessity into a testament of ingenuity that still shimmers beneath the surface, waiting for us to decipher its full meaning. Mohenjo-Daro's dusty grid of streets and baked brick buildings might seem unremarkable at first glance until you realize this Bronze Age city was mathematically perfect. Built around 2600 BC in what's now Pakistan, its entire layout follows the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern where each number is the sum of the two before it, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so on. This recursive rhythm, later formalized in medieval Europe, isn't just hidden in Mohenjo-Daro's street widths or block sizes. It governs the city's very bones. Main thoroughfares stretch in Fibonacci-proportioned segments, while smaller lanes branch off at intervals matching the sequence's ratios. The result: a self-replicating urban fractal where every alley and intersection breathes with mathematical harmony. Why would a 4,000-year-old civilization care about a number sequence found in sunflower spirals and galaxy arms? The answer lies in the Indus Valley's brutal climate. Mohenjo-Daro's Fibonacci grid isn't just pretty math, it's a survival algorithm. The sequence's ratios create natural wind channels, funneling cool air from the Indus River through the city while minimizing dust storms. Modern computational fluid dynamics confirm this. When researchers modeled Mohenjo-Daro's layout in wind tunnels, airflow distributed evenly across neighborhoods, unlike the turbulent dead zones found in conventional grids. Even more astonishing, the city's famous Great Bath sits at a Fibonacci-defined intersection of prevailing winds, its positioning ensuring evaporation rates that kept mosquito-borne diseases at bay. The precision goes deeper. Excavations reveal that residential blocks follow the golden rectangle, a shape derived from Fibonacci ratios, with house doors aligned to the sequence's angles. This wasn't just aesthetic, it optimized shade during scorching summers. At noon, shadows cast by buildings fell along Fibonacci paths, creating cool corridors without blocking light entirely. Meanwhile, the city's drainage system, often hailed as the ancient world's most advanced, used sewer pipes sized in Fibonacci increments to prevent clogs while maintaining steady flow. How did the Harappans achieve this without formal mathematics? The secret might lie in their water management. The Indus civilization depended on seasonal floods, and Fibonacci patterns emerge naturally in fluid dynamics. The same spirals appear in receding floodwaters and branching river deltas. By observing these organic forms, Harappan planners may have intuited the sequence's functional advantages. Alternatively, trade links to Mesopotamia could have transmitted geometric knowledge, though no direct evidence exists. What's undeniable is Mohenjo-Daro's legacy. While Greek mathematicians like Euclid later formalized these ratios, the Indus Valley applied them to urban life 2,000 years earlier. Their silent streets whisper an unsettling truth, that some forms of genius don't need equations to reshape the world, just eyes attuned to nature's hidden blueprints. Standing before an Egyptian obelisk as the sun climbs toward noon, you might notice something extraordinary. The shadow slithering across the ground isn't just a random dark streak. It's a celestial hand on a colossal sundial, one that doesn't just tell time but marks the turning of the seasons with uncanny precision. Take the obelisk at the Temple of Luxor. During the autumn equinox, its shadow stretches exactly 90 feet due west, intersecting a carved marker on the temple wall that signals the start of harvest rituals. This isn't luck, it's geometry carved in stone, a solar calculator engineered thousands of years before trigonometry was formalized. How did the Egyptians align these monolithic skyscrapers, some weighing over 400 tons, to function as gargantuan astronomical tools? The secret lies in the obelisk's dual design. Each one is a marvel of precision engineering, its four faces tapered at exactly 1 degree per side to create a pyramidion at the top. This subtle narrowing ensures the shadow's edge remains razor-sharp regardless of the sun's angle, eliminating the blur that would ruin its calendrical function. But the real genius is in their placement. Archaeoastronomers have discovered that obelisks weren't erected randomly. They were positioned along precise north-south axes, their foundations angled to compensate for the Earth's curvature at specific latitudes. The obelisk at Karnak, for instance, leans fractionally northeast, a correction that accounts for Thebes' geographic position, ensuring its shadow hits the solstice markers in the temple's inner sanctum with pinpoint accuracy. What's even more astonishing is the system's scalability. Smaller obelisks at outlying temples act like satellites to the grand central monoliths, their shadows marking intermediate dates like the solar zenith passages unique to Egypt's latitude. During these events, when the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, certain obelisks cast no shadow at all, a phenomenon the Egyptians called the sun standing still, later echoed in Babylonian and Mayan traditions. This network of stone and shadow formed a decentralized calendar, synchronized across hundreds of miles without written records or mechanical devices. The mystery deepens when you consider the tools available. Without magnetic compasses which wouldn't reach Egypt for another 2 millennia, how did they achieve such exact alignments? One clue comes from the Merkit, a simple plumb line used with a sighting tool called a bay. By observing the transit of specific stars like Sirius across the Merkits line, priests could determine true north with less than half a degree of error. Another method involved filling shallow trenches with water to create reflective surfaces for celestial observations, effectively turning the desert into a giant observatory. Yet the obelisk's true brilliance lies in their duality. They were both scientific instruments and theological symbols. The pyramidion at the top, often sheathed in electrum, would catch the first and last light of the day, symbolizing the sun god Ra's journey across the sky. The shadows they cast weren't just timekeepers. They were thought to be pathways for divine energy connecting Earth to the cosmos. Modern experiments reveal an eerie side effect. At certain angles, the obelisk shadows interact with temple columns to create moving geometric patterns, zigzags, diamonds, and spirals that animate the stone floors during solstice mornings. Was this sacred theater intentional? The precision suggested was, blending science and spirituality in a way that still feels revolutionary today. Perhaps most haunting is how this knowledge faded. Later Roman emperors hauled obelisks to Rome as trophies, cluelessly placing them askew in circuses and piazzas, their astronomical functions lost. Now, as lasers and 3D scans reconstruct the original alignments, we're left to marvel at a civilization that didn't just track time. They wove it into the landscape, turning sunlight and stone into a clockwork universe. The obelisks stand silent, their shadows still keeping secrets only the desert wind remembers. Step into the dimly lit Basilica of San Vitale in Ravenna, and the walls seem to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. The mosaics here, crafted in the 6th century, aren't just dazzling artworks, they're mathematical time capsules. Thousands of tiny glass and stone tesserae, some no larger than a grain of rice, are arranged in patterns that defy the era's known geometry. Zoom in close and you'll see something astonishing. These tessellations form quasi-crystalline structures, a type of non-repeating order that modern science wouldn't formally describe until the 1970s. Unlike simple symmetrical mosaics found in Roman villas, these designs never quite repeat, yet maintain a rigorous internal logic. How did Byzantine artisans, working centuries before X-ray crystallography or fractal mathematics, stumble upon arrangements that would later revolutionize materials science? The secret lies in the mosaic's five-fold symmetries, a hallmark of quasi-crystals. In the famed depiction of Emperor Justinian and his court, halos and robe borders radiate in star-shaped clusters of 5, 10, and 20 points. These aren't artistic whims, they're geometric impossibilities according to classical tiling rules, which dictated that only certain shapes could tessellate without gaps. Yet here they are, flawlessly executed. Modern physicists analyzing these patterns with diffraction algorithms found they match the Penrose tiling, a quasi-crystalline arrangement discovered by mathematician Roger Penrose in 1974. The mosaics achieved this through subtle color gradations and size variations in tesserae, creating the illusion of infinite complexity within finite space. But how could artists without formal mathematics conceive such advanced designs? One clue comes from their materials. Byzantine mosaicists used glass tesserae infused with metallic oxides, which fractured along crystalline planes when chipped. Observing these natural break patterns, they might have intuited how to replicate similar structures artificially. Another theory points to their spiritual framework. The Neoplatonic philosophy embraced by Byzantine scholars viewed geometric perfection as a path to the divine. Manuscripts from the era describe God as the geometer of the universe, suggesting artisans saw their work as earthly echoes of celestial order. The mosaic's practical creation deepens the mystery. Unlike painters, mosaicists couldn't sketch guidelines on curved vaults. Instead, they worked from memory and proportional systems, possibly using knotted strings to plot key points. Infrared scans reveal no underlying grids, just incremental adjustments where tesserae rotate by precise fractions of a degree to maintain the pattern's flow. This suggests an oral tradition of geometric recipes, passed down through guilds like sacred incantations. Perhaps most haunting is what these patterns imply about human cognition. Quasi-crystals were considered mathematically impossible until their laboratory discovery in the 1980s. Yet Byzantine craftsmen encoded their essence in glass and gold, proving that intuition can sometimes outpace formalism. Their mosaics don't just decorate walls, they whisper across millennia, reminding us that the boundary between art and science is, and always was, an illusion. Rising from the Mesopotamian floodplains like stairways to the gods, the ziggurats of ancient Sumer and Babylon weren't just temples, they were celestial calculators in baked brick. Each of their step tiers corresponded to a known planet in the Babylonian cosmos, with the 7 levels of the famous Etemenanki ziggurat mirroring the 7 heavenly bodies visible to the naked eye: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. But this wasn't arbitrary symbolism. Modern archaeoastronomers have discovered that the height ratios between these tiers match the orbital periods of the planets they represent. The Venus level, for instance, is proportionally taller, reflecting the planet's 584-day synodic cycle, a correlation too precise to dismiss as coincidence. What's truly baffling is how the builders achieved this without telescopes or written records of complex mathematics. The ziggurat's architects likely used a combination of shadow casting and water clocks to track planetary movements, embedding their observations into the very fabric of the structures. At Ur's Great Ziggurat, the northeast staircase aligns with the rising of Sirius during the New Year festival, while the corners of its terraces frame the solstice sunrises. This dual-function ritual stage and astronomical instrument suggests the Mesopotamians saw no divide between science and the sacred. The ziggurat was a cosmic axis, its bricks forming a 3-dimensional star chart that oriented worshippers within the divine order. The engineering behind these towers deepens the mystery. Unlike Egyptian pyramids with their internal chambers, ziggurats were solid masses, their stability relying on precise outward angles calculated to withstand seismic activity. Each layer's slope matches the natural angle of repose for sun-dried mud bricks, a principle modern civil engineering would formalize millennia later. Even more remarkably, the terraces' widths decrease at a consistent ratio as they ascend, creating a parabolic curve that subtly corrects for optical illusion, making the structure appear perfectly straight from a distance. This attention to perceptual geometry hints at a sophistication we're only beginning to decode. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in the ziggurat's coloration. Cuneiform tablets describe each tier being painted a different hue: white for Mercury, blue for Venus, red for Mars, following the same chromatic coding Babylonian astrologers used in their celestial maps. During excavations at Jor-Kurigaltsu, traces of these pigments were found preserved in the brickwork, their chemical composition matching mineral dyes described in temple inventories. When sunlight struck the ziggurat at dawn, the effect would have been staggering, a shimmering spectrum of the cosmos, its colors shifting with the sun's angle like a colossal prism. Yet the greatest wonder isn't how they built these towers, but why they abandoned them. By the time of Alexander the Great, ziggurats lay in ruins, their astronomical knowledge fragmented. Some scholars argue the systems were too tied to specific celestial alignments. When precession slowly shifted the stars, the temples lost their precision. Others believe the secrets died with the priestly class that guarded them. Today, as 3D scans reveal hidden geometric patterns in the remaining brickwork, we're left to piece together a puzzle where every terrace was a sentence in a lost language of the stars. The ziggurats stand as silent witnesses to a time when architecture wasn't just about reaching heaven, it was about holding a mirror to its motions. Edward Leedskalnin's Coral Castle rises from the Florida limestone like a fever dream of stone, a sprawling complex of megalithic sculptures, towering obelisks, and a 9-ton gate that pivots with the touch of a finger. But what's truly inexplicable isn't just how this 5-foot-tall, 100-pound Latvian immigrant single-handedly quarried and arranged over 1,000 tons of rock. It's the hidden geometric code pulsing through its design. Walk the site's winding pathways and you're tracing a perfect golden spiral, the same logarithmic curve found in hurricanes, galaxies, and the chambers of Nautilus shells. This mathematical marvel, formalized by Fibonacci but observed in nature since antiquity, shouldn't have been within reach of a man who dropped out of school at 16 and worked as a lumberjack. Yet here it is, etched into the coral bedrock with the precision of a master architect. Leedskalnin left no blueprints, but the evidence is carved in stone. The castle's central moon fountain aligns with the spiral's origin point, its concentric basins decreasing in size at a ratio of 1.618, the golden ratio's exact value. Radiating outward, the positions of the massive rocking chair, telescope tower, and even his infamous Feast of Love table follow the spiral's expanding arcs with less than 2% deviation. Modern drone surveys confirm these alignments aren't approximate. They're deliberate, as if the entire site was plotted by an invisible compass attuned to nature's deepest rhythms. How did a man who claimed his only tools were a tripod, chains, and a bottle of soda unlock this advanced geometry? Leedskalnin's cryptic writings hint at an obsession with magnetism and cosmic forces, leading some theorists to propose he discovered a lost harmonic science linking stone and spin. Others point to his Latvian roots, where folk traditions revered spiral motifs as symbols of life force, knowledge he might have absorbed unconsciously. But the most compelling clue lies in the castle's construction photos. Time-lapse images show Leedskalnin adjusting blocks by infinitesimal degrees over weeks, suggesting he wasn't calculating angles but feeling them, iterating toward perfection through patient observation. The mystery intensifies when you examine his tools. Leedskalnin's surviving tripod, now displayed at the site, bears strange markings that correspond to golden ratio fractions. Witnesses reported him humming while moving stones, as if sound vibrations played a role, a notion that gains credence when you consider the castle's acoustic properties. Certain alcoves amplify specific musical intervals, creating standing waves that might have guided his placements. Was he tapping into resonance as an ancient builder's plumb line? Perhaps the most haunting question isn't how he built it, but why. Leedskalnin dedicated his life to this spiral shrine after being jilted by his teenage love, Agnes Scuffs. Some researchers propose the golden spiral was his love letter to the universe, a geometric ode to the cyclical nature of heartbreak and renewal. Others see it as a functional energy generator, its shape harnessing unseen forces. When engineers dismantled and reassembled the 9-ton gate in 1986, it never moved as smoothly again, suggesting Leedskalnin's original alignment held a secret balance we've yet to rediscover. Today, as physicists use supercomputers to model spiral galaxies, Coral Castle stands as a silent rebuke, proof that nature's deepest patterns might be grasped not through equations, but through the slow, patient dialogue between a man and his stones. Leedskalnin didn't just carve rock, he danced with geometry's ghost, leaving behind a puzzle that whispers, the universe's code is written in curves, waiting for those who dare to trace them by hand. Rising from the savannah like a stone echo of the surrounding baobabs, the conical towers of Great Zimbabwe defy simple categorization. These ancient structures, built between the 11th and 15th centuries, don't just dominate the landscape, they converse with it. Their fluted, honeycomb-like walls mimic the ventilation shafts of termite mounds, while the city's labyrinthine passages replicate the branching patterns of river deltas. This isn't accidental resemblance, it's deliberate biomimicry, an architectural language that speaks in fractal geometry long before mathematicians coined the term. Zoom in on any section of the ruins, and you'll find the same patterns repeating at different scales, a hallmark of fractal design. The curved walls of the great enclosure ripple outward in concentric waves like stone tree rings, their undulations matching the rhythm of wind-sculpted dunes. Nearby, the valley ruins village clusters sprawl in self-similar formations, circular huts arranged in circles around larger circles, mirroring the nested hierarchy of a thunderhead's cloud structure. Modern LiDAR scans reveal these layouts align with underground water veins, suggesting the builders understood hydrogeology as intimately as they did geometry. What makes this fractal wisdom even more remarkable is its cultural context. The Shona people who engineered these marvels left no written records of mathematical theories. Yet their architecture encodes advanced principles of scalability and resilience. The tower's tapered forms, for instance, aren't just aesthetically striking, they're structurally optimal, distributing wind forces evenly to prevent collapse, much like the flexing stalks of savanna grasses. Even the mortarless masonry follows fractal logic. Each stone's placement creates micro-patterns that collectively form macro-structures capable of withstanding centuries of seismic activity. Parallels with termite mounds are particularly uncanny. Both systems use passive ventilation, cool air entering through base openings while heat escapes through upper chimneys, maintaining stable interiors despite exterior temperature swings. But Great Zimbabwe's builders took this further. Their tower's orientation captures seasonal breezes, channeling them through the city's fractal alleyways to create natural air conditioning. This wasn't just survival science, it was sacred engineering. Shona oral traditions describe the towers as pathways for ancestral spirits, their geometries mirroring the cosmic order described in creation myths where land, sky, and water intertwine in infinite recursion. Today, as architects study these ruins for sustainable design solutions, they're uncovering layers of sophistication previously overlooked. The fractal layouts maximize shade while minimizing walking distances, an ancient precursor to modern urban efficiency models. The use of local granite, its crystalline structure echoing the repetitive patterns in the walls, suggests the builders saw stone not as inert material but as a partner in geometric storytelling. Perhaps most poetically, the tower's shadows at solstice trace spirals identical to those found in galaxies and seashells, a silent testament to a civilization that didn't just live in nature but thought like it. In a world grappling with climate crises, Great Zimbabwe's silent stones offer a radical lesson that the most advanced technology might not be invented but observed. The fractal wisdom woven into these ruins whispers across 7 centuries, reminding us that sustainability isn't a modern innovation. It's an ancient dialogue between human ingenuity and the patterns of the earth itself. From pyramids to temples, these 42 geometric marvels stand as silent witnesses to a past far more sophisticated than our textbooks suggest. Each stone, each alignment, each precisely calculated angle whispers the same tantalizing question: how? How did cultures separated by oceans and millennia arrive at identical mathematical truths without shared language or tools? The Great Pyramid's pi encoding, the Parthenon's golden ratios, the Nazca line's aerial precision. they form a global tapestry of knowledge that shouldn't exist, yet defiantly does. Consider the possibilities. Perhaps these civilizations tapped into what the philosopher Plato called anamnesis, the idea that all learning is remembering, that geometric truths exist eternally in the human psyche, waiting to be uncovered. Or maybe there really was a lost progenitor culture, an Atlantis or Hyperborea, whose survivors seeded this wisdom across the world after some cataclysm. The similarities between Mesoamerican and Egyptian pyramid complexes, or the shared use of the megalithic yard from Britain to Babylon, suggest connections we've yet to fully understand. Even the more controversial theories, like ancient contact with advanced extraterrestrial advisors as depicted in Sumerian cylinder seals or the Vimana texts, force us to confront our assumptions about human progress. Yet the most compelling evidence lies not in wild speculation, but in the stones themselves. The Incas' earthquake-proof masonry, the Mayas' acoustic temples, the Indus Valley's Fibonacci planned cities, they demonstrate that these weren't just symbolic gestures but applied sciences. This knowledge worked. It kept buildings standing for millennia, turned structures into calendars, and harmonized human habitats with cosmic rhythms in ways we're only beginning to replicate with supercomputers and satellites. What does this mean for our understanding of history? The traditional linear narrative, from primitive to advanced, crumbles under the weight of these anomalies. Instead, we might envision human knowledge as a spiral where insights are discovered, lost, and rediscovered across ages. The Renaissance didn't invent perspective. It revived principles known to Pompeian fresco painters. Modern seismology didn't pioneer base isolation. The builders of Machu Picchu mastered it 600 years ago. This isn't about diminishing modern achievement, but expanding our awe. These ancient architects remind us that brilliance isn't bound by era or technology. They solved problems with observation, intuition, and relentless experimentation, tools available to anyone in any age. Their legacy challenges us to look beyond conventional timelines and consider that the most profound discoveries might not lie ahead, but behind us, waiting in the ruins to be seen anew. So we pass the question to you: does the Great Pyramid's celestial alignment stir your curiosity, or does Coral Castle's golden spiral whisper louder? Perhaps the silent fractal wisdom of Great Zimbabwe speaks to your sense of connection with nature's patterns. Whatever resonates, remember, these mysteries aren't relics of a dead past, but invitations. Invitations to look closer, think deeper, and marvel at the untold chapters of human ingenuity still waiting to be read in the geometry of the ancients. The conversation continues below, and the next discovery might be yours. Until then, keep questioning, keep wondering, and as